Chapter 640. Sword formation masters were extremely rare, and had a special status in the cultivation world. Although sword formation masters were not sword cultivators, their killing power was not inferior at all. If they could set up some powerful sword formations, they could even take on the Jindan phenomenons of many ancient inheritances head-on without being disadvantaged. Of course, there was an obvious flaw for sword formation masters. Although the speed of setting up a sword formation was fast, it could not compare to many spirit arts and secret skills. If they were to meet a top expert, they would strike decisively before they could set up a sword formation and interrupt it. It was clear that the ancient remnant beasts in the valley did not have the foresight to do so. Hundreds of ancient remnant beasts charged forward, but were minced by the 4 hexagonal sword formations in an extremely tragic manner with their flesh splattered everywhere. Roar! The golden lion was finally moved. Enraged, it roared in the direction of Suzimo. The valley quaked and the leaves of the ancient trees fell. The fresh blood before them triggered the remaining ancient remnant beasts. The beasts were in a frenzy and their roars reverberated through the valley. Bang! 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 The remaining 1,000-odd ancient remnant beasts turned around with ferocious gazes. In fact, they even abandoned the blue-robed man and the others and sped towards Suzimo. An opportunity! The blue-robed man's eyes lit up as he hollered, "Hurry and leave!" Before he could finish his sentence, the blue-robed man leaped into the air and channeled Jindan furiously. Turning into a streak of light, he fled towards the other side of the valley. The remaining dozen odd people were stunned and could not react in time. The beautiful female cultivator looked at the blue-robed man in disbelief with her mouth agape. She had not expected the blue-robed man to do something as despicable as this. No matter what, the green-robed cultivator was here to help them. However, the blue-robed man made use of the opportunity when the ancient remnant beasts were attacking the green-robed cultivator to escape. What was the difference between him and an ingrate? Why aren't you guys leaving? The blue-robed man sprinted in midair and turned around. When he saw that the beautiful female cultivator and the others were still standing on the spot, he could not help but scoff coldly. That person is about to be devoured by the demons. If you miss this opportunity, you guys can just wait for death here. The few cultivators who were originally hesitant were obviously moved. Everyone could tell that while the green-robed cultivators' 4 sword formations were powerful, they would definitely not be able to defend against the charge of almost 1,000 ancient remnant beasts. Once the green-robed cultivator was torn apart, it would be their turn next. Not everyone could face death calmly and give up their lives for justice. What's more, everyone cultivated for nothing more than longevity. If he really died here, he would have nothing left. The beautiful female cultivator's eyes flashed with a hint of struggle, but she still made a decision and didn't leave. But beside her, 7 or 8 of her fellow disciples rose into the air, wanting to follow the blue-robed man out of the valley. When the blue-robed man saw the beautiful female cultivator's decision, he could not help but frown and curse in his heart. How foolish! Just as the blue-robed man was about to turn around and run away with all his might, he discovered that the 7 or 8 fellow disciples who had originally soared into the air had not followed him. Instead, they had stopped in place and their bodies were trembling slightly. These people looked terrified, as if they had seen something extremely terrifying. The beautiful female cultivator was the same. Almost 1,000 ancient remnant beasts charged forward, and were minced by the candlelight sword formation. Flesh and blood splattered everywhere and corpses were strewn everywhere. The entire valley was dyed red with blood. Bang! 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 Many ancient remnant beasts charged forward fearlessly, but they could not shake the candlelight sword formation at all. The sword formation began to push forward slowly. When the beautiful female cultivator and the others saw that, their ears were filled with the sounds of flesh and bones being minced and they were shocked. The ancient remnant beast horde was in chaos and retreating. The green-robed figure returned to their sights once more. Riding on the heaven-bane wolf, the green-robed cultivator headed in their direction with a calm expression and a deep gaze. The sword formation was condensed right in front of his palm. The green-robed cultivator merely waved his arm casually and the terrifying sword formation danced in midair, mincing and destroying everything. Everyone was stunned. How was that a sword formation? It was as though the green-robed cultivator was wielding a blazing sun that was plucked from the heavens. Wherever the sharp beam pointed, there was no life. Behind him was a path of blood that was paved with countless corpses. Wielding the blazing sun, the green-robed cultivator traversed through the blood rain and corpses like a divine being of the world, looking down on everything in an inviolable manner. The beautiful female cultivator's eyes were unblinking with a dazed expression. Chapter 641. In the valley, the number of ancient remnant beasts was decreasing rapidly. Even with close to 1,000 ancient remnant beasts, they could not do anything to the Grade 3 candlelight sword formation. Corpses piled up into mountains and blood flowed into rivers. It was as though the valley had turned into a blood-colored hell. Finally, some of the ancient remnant beasts could not hold on any longer and the ferocity in their eyes vanished. Overwhelmed by the fear of death, they began to flee in all directions. On the peak, the golden lion looked down at the seemingly insignificant human in the valley with a grim expression. It finally stopped underestimating him. This human was extremely strong. This sword formation seemed to carry a trace of extremely ancient power, and it caused its heart to palpitate. However, the more that was the case, the more excited the golden lion was, and the glint in its eyes intensified as its battle-intent soared. Even without the ancient remnant beasts, it was worth it to be able to subdue such a strong human as a servant. Roar! The golden lion roared and its blood chi surged. Surrounded by demonic chi, it descended from the skies and extended a pair of sharp claws, lunging towards the candlelight sword formation viciously. After all, it was a bystander who saw things more clearly. Although the sword formation was strong, up till this point of the battle, every single flying sword was stained with the blood of many ancient remnant beasts, and their sword lights were gradually dimming. The bloodline of ancient remnant beasts was extremely strong. Even supreme-grade spirit weapons would be weakened after being stained by so much demon blood. Even supreme-grade spirit weapons would be crippled if they were soaked in it for a long period of time. The circulation of the candlelight sword formation was clearly not as smooth as before, and the range of the sword chi had shrunk significantly with a hint of sluggishness. The reason why the golden lion waited until now to attack was because it wanted to dispel the candlelight sword formation in one go. Boom! There was a deafening sound. The candlelight sword formation and the golden lion collided. There was a momentary pause. Swoosh! The sword formation dissipated and the 27 flying swords fell one after another, their sword lights dimming completely. The spectators were engrossed and could not help but exclaim. They were even more anxious than Suzimo at the sight of the sword formation being destroyed. However, Suzimo was not surprised, as he kept the 27 flying swords in his storage bag calmly with a calm gaze. Once this battle was over, he would wipe off the demon blood on these flying swords, and the flying swords would naturally return to their original state. The golden lion was sent flying. It rolled on the ground and got up again. Its paws were trembling slightly, and it felt waves of pain. Even so, the golden lion could not hide the excitement in its eyes. It had finally broken through this terrifying sword formation with its accumulated power. The golden lion looked up to the sky and laughed loudly. "Little one, I've already broken your strongest move, ha 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 ha. Strongest technique?" A strange look flickered in Suzimo's eyes. The golden lion's eyes were like torches as it looked down at Suzimo in the valley. It said loudly, "If you surrender now and sign a blood oath with me, you can suffer less. Otherwise, The golden lion bared its fangs and revealed a sinister smile, blatantly threatening Suzimo. "I'll return those words to you as well." With a fake smile, Suzimo leaped down from the heaven-bane wolf. "Golden lion, you can suffer less if you lay down obediently in front of me and be my mount." The golden lion was enraged. However, the heaven-bane wolf was overjoyed. As though it had been pardoned, it ran towards the entrance of the valley with a swoosh. "Little one, you've angered me." The golden lion ground its teeth and sticky saliva dripped from the gaps of its teeth as it said word by word. "You had better beg for mercy quickly. Otherwise, I'll change my mind and swallow you alive." When he heard that, Suzimo smiled. Instantly, the golden lion was agitated when it saw Suzimo's smile. It roared and its fur stood on end as its blood chi surged and its body expanded. "I'm going to swallow you." The golden lion roared. "Humph! Retracting his smile, Su Zimo suddenly reached out and intertwined his fingers, conjuring hand seals continuously as he pointed towards the golden lion. Swoosh! The wind howled and spirit energy rumbled. The beautiful female cultivator and the others could clearly sense the spirit chi in the valley surging towards the hand seals in Su Zimo's hands like a tidal wave. It was as though a spirit chi vortex was being formed. What a frightening spirit art! Everyone was shocked. In the blink of an eye, a gigantic palm of spirit energy appeared before Su Zimo. Its fingers were wide open and the patterns on the palm could be seen clearly. The gigantic palm covered the skies and pressed down towards the golden lion fiercely. The golden lion's expression changed starkly. It could sense an extremely frightening aura from the palm that was formed. In fact, it even had a clear suppressive effect on its blood chi. What is that? The golden lion channeled its inner core furiously and demonic chi rumbled around it. Ma! Right then, an earth-shattering Sanskrit sounded. The golden lion shuddered and its fur fell instantly. Its blood chi dissipated and could not be condensed. Even the speed of its inner core circulation slowed down. How could this be? The golden lion was alarmed. In reality, this was the first time Su Zimo released the Daming Dermic seal with the Daming mantra after cultivating the Daming True Sutra. The reason why the Dermic seal suppressed the golden lion so obviously was because the Dermic seal was the demon subduing seal. The demon subduing seal was meant to subdue demons. The blood chi of the ancient remnant beasts that did not manage to escape in time was dispersed, as they fell limply to the ground with horrified expressions. Thankfully, the golden lion was a pure-blooded ferocious beast and could still hold on. However, at the same time, the demon-subduing seal descended on the golden lion's head. Bang! The golden lion had just stood up and wanted to fight against the spirit energy palm when it was pushed back. Against the spirit energy palm, the golden lion's massive body trembled violently. If one wanted to subdue demons, they had to have the strength of a thunderbolt. The bloodline of the golden lion flowed slowly within its body, and could not be channeled at all. Thud! The golden lion knelt on the ground with a humiliated expression and indignance. However, it had no choice but to lower its haughty head. Roar, roar! The golden lion did not give up and roared from the depths of its throat. However, no matter how it struggled, it could not shake the demon-subduing seal at all. Crack! Crack! Both parties were in a stalemate and the power of the demon-subduing seal was clearly increasing. The bones within the golden lion's body crackled as its blood chi was suppressed, and its body shrank continuously. The beautiful female cultivator and the others were dumbfounded. Just now, the pure-blooded ferocious beast that was still ferocious was pressed to the ground motionlessly. The methods of this green-robed cultivator were truly frightening. The spirit energy palm was still suppressing the golden lion. Su Zimo strode before the golden lion and said indifferently, "Be my mount for a period of time and I can spare your life." The golden lion's eyes shone with a ferocious glint as it ground its teeth. Su Zimo's gaze turned cold. Boom! The power of the demon-subduing seal increased once more. The golden lion grunted dully and almost spat out blood from the pressure. Its organs were squeezed together. It realized that if it continued to hold on, it would really be suppressed and killed. However, the golden lion was indignant and had an indignant expression. It was a pure-blooded ferocious beast with a noble bloodline from the wild lion ridge of the 8 regions. How could it be a mount for a lowly human? Chapter 642. The pressure on its body intensified and the golden lion felt as though it was suffocating. It had to make a decision. The golden lion's eyes flickered continuously. Finally, it could not hold it in any longer and grit its teeth. "I can be your mount, but we can't sign a blood oath." That was its bottom line. As a member of the golden lion race, it would lose its dignity and become the shame of its race if it signed a blood oath with this lowly human. It wasn't as though the golden lion race had never signed a blood oath with humans before. However, those humans were all unparalleled heroes. Even if they weren't emperors, they were mighty figures, patriarchs or paragons of a generation that could look down on their peers. Although the human before it was skilled in some methods and was lucky enough to subdue it, in the eyes of the golden lion, Su Zimo was way too weak. From the bottom of its heart, the golden lion still looked down on Su Zimo. It steeled its heart and sneered, going all out. "If you've got the guts, Don't sign a blood oath with me. Sure, Suzimo nodded. This time round, the golden lion was the one stunned. Initially, it was prepared to die when it said those words. It did not expect Suzimo to agree so readily. Could my provocation have worked? Or is this lad toying with me? Those who were not of the same race would definitely have ulterior motives. If it was in its shoes, the golden lion would definitely force Suzimo to sign a blood oath with it. That way, it could save its energy and not have to worry about the other party's betrayal. The prerequisite for not signing a blood oath was that the difference in their cultivation realms was too great. At least 2 or 3 major cultivation realms. One of them was not worried about the other party's betrayal at all. Or rather, even if the other party betrayed him, he was confident enough to suppress it. However, this situation was contradictory. If Suzimo was a void reversion or the Dharma Daojun, there was no need for him to sign a blood oath with the Jin Dan realm spirit demon. Just as the golden lion's thoughts were running wild, Suzimo released the spirit art. The demon subduing seal that was as immovable as Mount Meru finally dissipated. The golden lion was overjoyed as if a heavy burden had been lifted from its shoulders. This brat actually let me go without signing a blood oath. Golden lion tried its best to control its emotions. It was certain of one thing. There was definitely something wrong with this thin and weak scholar's head. Ha 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 ha. The golden lion laughed maniacally in its heart. He really let me go. From now on I can leave at any time. Why would I still be your mount? Suzimo withdrew the demon subduing seal and turned around, his back facing the golden lion. He looked defenseless as he walked towards the spirit concentrating fruit. This spirit gathering fruit naturally belonged to Suzimo. Initially, the golden lion wanted to leave immediately. However, when it looked at Suzimo's back view, a murderous glint flashed through its eyes and killing intent surged in its heart. Right now, as long as it lunged forward, the scholar would definitely not be able to react in time. Even if he could, the scholar would not be able to release the spirit art just now at such a close distance. The scholar would definitely be devoured. However, on second thought, the golden lion hesitated. No matter what, the scholar had let it off first. If it were to repay kindness with ingratitude and devour the scholar instead, the golden lion would feel uncomfortable and could not bring itself to devour the scholar. Bloody hell, are my demon beasts going to die for nothing? Just now this brat pressed me against the ground and my head was almost stuffed into the ground. Am I going to let this go just like that? The more the golden lion thought about it, the angrier it got. This was intolerable. It could not let this go just like that. While it was pondering, Suzimo had already retrieved the spirit gathering fruit and turned to walk towards it. The golden lion had an idea. When this brat mounts me, I'll circulate my inner core and expand my flesh and tendons to send him flying and embarrass him. Ha 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 ha. That's right, let's do that. The more the golden lion thought about it, the more excited it got and it could not help but grin. Although Suzimo had many tricks up his sleeve, he had yet to cultivate divine power such as mind reading of the Buddhist monasteries and naturally did not know what the golden lion was thinking. However, when he saw the strange smile on the lion's face, Suzimo frowned and slapped it casually. What are you laughing at? Let's go. With that said, Suzimo flipped and rode on the golden lion's back. That slap stunned the golden lion. It froze on the spot and could not react for a moment. That man seemed to have slapped me? How dare he slap me? The golden lion was enraged and let out a deep growl from the depths of its throat. Its inner core churned wildly and expanded its flesh. Demonic chi burst forth and its body was about to expand. Suzimo was calm and unmoving as a mountain with a mocking look in his eyes. Thump! Without Suzimo making any moves, the golden lion sprawled on the ground once more, causing dust to fly everywhere. Ugh! The golden lion groaned in pain. It felt as though its spine was almost snapped by this seemingly frail scholar. The scholar's legs clamped down on both sides of its ribs like an indestructible iron hoop. Its flesh could not be broken at all. It was about to suffocate from the pressure, let alone send the scholar flying. Impossible! The golden lion could not believe it and roared internally. How can this frail scholar possess such frightening physical strength? Right then, the scholar lowered his head slightly and whispered in its ear, "Be obedient and don't harbor any other thoughts." The scholar's palm landed on its head, and he stroked it gently as he spoke. Although it seemed gentle, the golden lion shuddered and a chill ran down its spine. It could clearly feel that the scholar's fingertips had extended an inch or so and scratched its scalp. The fingernails were extremely sharp and were even sharper than blades. It did not doubt that the scholar could create 5 holes in its head if he exerted strength. The golden lion wanted to cry, but no tears came out. It finally realized that it was not that the scholar was stupid, but that he was strong enough. He was so strong that he could suppress it at any moment even without signing a blood oath with it. "Let's go." Suzimo's voice sounded. Suddenly, the golden lion felt its body lighten. Just now's immense strength seemed to have vanished. However, the scholar was still riding on its body. Where did this monster incarnate come from? I'm truly unlucky. The golden lion sighed and realized that it could not resist. Instantly, it turned listless and walked out of the valley slowly. It was a ferocious beast with a reputation in the wild lion ridge. After entering the ancient battlefield, it initially intended to defeat all the paragons of the human race, and look down on the demons, displaying its might and making a name for itself. To think that it would suffer such a huge setback after just a few days. Great, now that it did not have to defeat all the paragons of the human race, it could only be a mount obediently. What the golden lion was most worried about was encountering demon beasts it knew in the ancient battlefield in the future. If those demonic beasts saw this scene, it would really lose all its face. The golden lion clan's face would be completely lost because of it. At that thought, the golden lion was filled with sorrow and its eyes turned moist. "Senior sister, look. That lion seems to be crying from the beating." A cultivator at the side whispered. When it heard that, the golden lion's face darkened and it staggered, almost spitting out a mouthful of blood. "Steady yourself," Suzimo hollered. Piak. Its head received another slap for no reason. This time round, the golden lion was truly crying. Chapter 643. Naturally, no one could understand the struggle between the man and lion. None of them could have imagined that the pure-blooded ferocious beast had been completely subdued in that short period of time. When they saw Suzimo approaching slowly on the golden lion, a cultivator turned to the beautiful female cultivator beside him and whispered, "Senior sister, should we head up and thank him?" The beautiful female cultivator's gaze was dazed. When she heard that, she froze for a moment before a look of panic flashed through her beautiful eyes. Blushing slightly, she nodded instinctively. "That's right." The beautiful female cultivator looked at the green-robed cultivator with a strange gaze. All of them were cultivators who had been cultivating for decades or even centuries. Naturally, they were aware of the situation and were well aware of it. The beautiful female cultivator's name was Tang Shiyun. She was extremely famous in their sect and was the true #1 beauty of the sect. Coupled with her extraordinary talent and strength, she was extremely dazzling among her peers like the moon surrounded by stars. Sensing Tang Shiyun's thoughts, it would be a lie to say that the male cultivators present were not jealous. They were more or less jealous. However, after this battle, everyone could not help but admit, this green-robed cultivator was indeed a rare paragon with an outstanding demeanor. Although he looked frail, every single action and action of his was filled with a domineering aura that was subduing. Taking a deep breath, Tang Shiyun arrived before Suzimo and greeted him with cupped fists, saying gently, "I'm Tang Shiyun of Southern Dual Sect. Thank you for saving my life, fellow Taoist." Suzimo paused and turned to look at Tang Shiyun with an indifferent gaze. Tang Shiyun lowered her head slightly, revealing a slender fair neck that was stained with sweat and shone with a crystalline luster. She had a unique charm. It would be an exaggeration to say that she fell in love at first sight with Suzimo. However, at that moment Tang Shiyun's heart was pounding uncontrollably. She felt as though everyone around her could hear her, and did not dare to look at Suzimo. In reality, she could not be blamed for that. When her life was on the line, a person like him descended from the skies and killed all dangers with thunderous methods, subduing all demons. If it was any other woman, they would be flustered as well. "I'm fine," Suzimo said calmly as he patted the golden lion. The golden lion understood and walked out of the valley, ignoring Tang Shiyun and the others. Tang Shiyun raised her head subconsciously, but all she saw was a green silhouette disappearing into the distance. She couldn't help but feel disappointed. Tang Shiyun stood where she was and bit her lips. After hesitating for a long time, she finally made a decision and chased after him. The remaining members of the Southern Dual sect hurriedly followed. "Fellow Taoist, please wait a moment." Tang Shiyun raised her voice and shouted. The figure in front paused slightly. Tang Shiyun was overjoyed and sped up. Not long after, she caught up with him, panting slightly. "What is it?" Su Zimo turned his head with a questioning look in his eyes. Just now, Tang Shiyun didn't leave while he was fighting the ancient remnant beasts. This action gave him a slightly better impression of this woman. Otherwise, he wouldn't have stopped and would have left a long time ago. Tang Shiyun tried her best to calm her breathing and compose herself. Looking at Su Zimo's handsome face, she smiled mischievously. "I still don't know your name and sect. After all, you're our benefactor and we won't be able to find you if we want to repay our gratitude in the future." Su Zimo smiled indifferently. "I'm not your benefactor. I just happened to pass by and I'm here for the spirit gathering fruit as well." Tang Shiyun's face flushed red. Perhaps it was because she was in a rush or something else. She asked once more, "Fellow Taoist, you haven't said your name yet?" "Name?" Su Zimo hesitated for a moment before saying, "I'm Su Zimo. I'm not from any sect." At the same time, Su Zimo narrowed his eyes and looked at Tang Shiyun's face. Tang Shiyun's expression didn't change much. It was a complete reaction to hearing a stranger's name. Su Zimo nodded to himself. It seemed like Southern Dual sect shouldn't be in the North region. There should be very few cultivators in the North region who hadn't heard of the name Su Zimo. "Fellow Taoist Su, may I know where you're headed to? If it's convenient, why don't we travel together?" Tang Shiyun invited with a sincere expression. Su Zimo frowned slightly and his first reaction was to reject her. When Tang Shiyun saw Su Zimo frown, she knew that this was most likely not going to work out. Hurriedly, she added, "Many living beings have already awakened from their slumber in the ancient battlefield. Coupled with the fact that ferocious beasts from the 8 demon regions have entered, danger is everywhere. If we travel together, we can help one another." At that point, Tang Shiyun felt a little ashamed. After all, given Su Zimo's capabilities, there was truly no need for their help. After thinking for a moment, Tang Shiyun continued, "Southern Dual sect is one of the upper sects of the South region. Although our combat strength isn't comparable to yours, we can be considered as a helper. Furthermore, senior brother Zhu is out alone. I'm sure he must have received our spirit crane and is rushing over." That's right. If not for the fact that senior brother Zhu wasn't around, we wouldn't be in such a terrible state. A cultivator at the side. Senior brother Zhu is strong, and is a paragon of the previous Jin Dan phenomenon ranking. If he was around, those beasts wouldn't have been able to act so arrogantly. Another Southern Dual sect cultivator grit his teeth and glared at the golden lion that Su Zimo was sitting on with a hateful gaze. Initially, the golden lion was listless. However, when it sensed the hostility, it spun around with a ferocious glint. Opening its mouth, it roared at the person and was about to pounce. Roar! The forest shook. The Southern Dual sect cultivator shuddered in fright and his face turned pale. Instinctively, he wanted to retreat but his legs went limp and he fell to the ground. Ha 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 ha. The golden lion reared its head in laughter with a mocking gaze. Although it was subdued by Su Zimo, it was still ferocious. However, that did not mean that anyone could bully it and trample on it. After all, the golden lion was a pure-blooded ferocious beast with a violent nature that could not be tamed. The Southern Dual sect cultivator was ashamed, and his expression turned even more resentful. This time round, Su Zimo did not reprimand it, instead gazed into the distant horizons in deep thought. Right at this moment, a long howl suddenly came from the horizon. It was full of energy. An extremely powerful aura approached rapidly and the sound of fluttering robes could be heard. The person was approaching at lightning speed. Senior brother Zhu. Senior brother Zhu is back. Everyone from Southern Dual sect cheered excitedly. Su Zimo had a calm expression and was not surprised at all. Long before the whistle sounded, he had already noticed the commotion coming from the other side. The fact that this cultivator surnamed Zhu dared to roam the ancient battlefield alone was proof of his capabilities. Furthermore, there were at least hundreds of thousands, millions or even more of the perfected Jin Dan beings that entered this place. However, there were only 108 spots on the Jindan phenomenon ranking, and anyone who could occupy a spot on it was definitely not ordinary. Chapter 644. The intruder's face was chiseled and he had a strong body with huge bones. Even though he rode the wind, he did not seem to have any strength at all. He wore a black robe and had a powerful aura. Suzimo merely took a casual glance and knew that the black robe was not simple. The surface of the robe was dotted with stars, as though they were tattooed on. Furthermore, they shone faintly in a dazzling manner. If one was caught off guard during a fight, the stars on the robe would shine brightly and stimulate the eyes of the opponent, causing them to panic instantly. Of course, the robe was of no threat to Suzimo. He cultivated the illumination eye and looked at the rising sun every day. There was naturally no way he would be afraid of these specks of starlight. The black-robed cultivator's gaze was sharp as he scanned Tang Shiyun and the others. Instantly, his expression darkened. "This is senior brother Zhu Yu," Tang Shiyun first said to Suzimo before raising her voice. "Senior brother Zhu, this is fellow Taoist Suzimo. It's all thanks to him that we were able to escape this time round." Zhu Yu's gaze landed on Suzimo. At first glance, this person looked way too ordinary. He wore an ordinary green robe and had delicate features without any sect badge on his waist. His first impression was that this person did not look like a cultivator, but more like a frail scholar. The strength of a cultivator could mostly be seen in their essence, qi and spirit. Some people had strong auras and could intimidate everything without even making a move. Some people had ferocious gazes and the void was filled with the stench of blood. However, in Zhu Yu's eyes, Suzimo was truly ordinary. The only thing that surprised him was that the lion beneath Suzimo was golden in color, and seemed to be of the golden lion lineage. However, the golden lion's body was much more massive than this one. Furthermore, this lion looked listless and listless. It did not have the dominance and ferocity of a pure-blooded ferocious beast at all. It's probably some kind of messy mixed bloodline. This thought flashed through Zhu Yu's mind, but he didn't think too much about it. Zhu Yu glanced at Suzimo before retracting his gaze. Without any intention of greeting him, he asked in a deep voice, "What's going on?" Cultivators of Southern Dual Sect had already stepped forward and recounted everything that happened in the valley. Zhu Yu's expression darkened. This time around, the Southern Dual Sect had sent over 100 cultivators in. Now there were only a dozen left. It could be said that they had suffered a heavy loss. The primordial battlefield had just opened. Zhu Yu seemed to have suddenly thought of something. He looked around the crowd and asked coldly, "Where's my younger brother?" "Eaten by the golden lion." The cultivator who was sitting on the ground in fear finally got the chance to speak up. He glared at the golden lion with resentment. The golden lion shook its head. It was not afraid at all. If not for the fact that Suzimo was riding on its back, it would have pounced forward and torn this Zhu Yu guy to shreds. Suzimo raised his brows slightly. In that case, just now, the blue-robed man who escaped alone was the younger brother of this Zhu Yu before him. Zhu Yu turned around and glared at Suzimo, and the golden lion beneath him with a murderous gaze. Tang Shiyun's expression changed slightly. The atmosphere instantly dropped to the freezing point. "Senior brother Zhu, don't get angry first," Tang Shiyun said hurriedly. "Fellow Taoist Su is our benefactor and this has nothing to do with him. Furthermore, when fellow Taoist Su attacked, Zhu Wei was the one who abandoned us and escaped alone. That was why he was eaten." When he saw how close the two of them were standing and how Tang Shiyun was clearly protecting Suzimo, Zhu Yu's expression darkened and his killing intent intensified. "Fufu." Zhu Yu sneered and asked instead, "In that case, my younger brother deserved his death." "And no, that's not what I meant. It's just that." Tang Shiyun was anxious and wanted to explain. However, she did not know what to say and could only look at Suzimo helplessly. Suzimo's expression was indifferent as he said slowly, "In my opinion, your brother's death was indeed his own doing." The moment he said that, the scene went silent. Complete silence. "What did you say?" The spirit energy within Zhu Yu's body rumbled and his eyes shone with a sharp killing intent. "No." Tang Shiyun moved and stood between the two of them hurriedly. She was so anxious that she was about to cry. "Senior brother Zhu, fellow Taoist Su, don't fight. This is a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? Zhu Yu smiled sinisterly and said coldly, my younger brother's death is a misunderstanding? I'll kill him right now and say that this is a misunderstanding as well, alright? Senior brother Zhu, this has nothing to do with fellow Taoist Su. He was the one who saved us. Tang Shiyun tried her best to explain. Calm down both of you. A southern dual sect cultivator persuaded as well. Senior brother Zhu, fellow Taoist Su. There's no need for the two of you to fight. Both of you will only suffer. The golden lion could not help but grin when it heard the words both of you will suffer. The golden lion looked at Zhu Yu as though it was looking at a retard. How ignorant. In reality, right from the beginning, Su Zimo had not been angered at all. He was indifferent and there were no emotions in his eyes. Fufufu. Zhu Yu laughed sinisterly with a cold expression and said coldly, it's fine if you guys persuade me not to fight. However, who's going to pay for my younger brother's life? When the southern dual sect cultivator saw the golden lion laughing foolishly at the side, he had an idea and pointed at it. That lion. Senior brother Zhu Wei was devoured by that lion. Kill it and pay with your life. Tang Shiyun was delighted as well and looked at Su Zimo instinctively. After all, the golden lion had nothing to do with Su Zimo. It was a demon beast that he had just subdued and had not even signed a blood oath. This was equivalent to both sides taking a step back. That was the best solution. All right, Zhu Yu smirked and glared at Su Zimo coldly. Since my junior brother and sister are pleading for you, I'll spare your life for now and kill that beast beneath you first. Su Zimo smiled and said indifferently, what if I don't? The atmosphere that had eased up earlier turned tense once more. Their gazes collided in midair and sparks flew. Actually, in Su Zimo's heart, the cultivator named Zhu Wei deserved his death. When he appeared to fight against the demons, not only did that person not help him, he even took advantage of the chaos to escape. Someone like that deserved to die. Even if the golden lion did not devour that person alive, Su Zimo would have chased after him and killed him. However, given Su Zimo's personality, he could not be bothered to explain things like that. So be it. His cultivation was for his thoughts to be clear and he wanted to repay his debts of gratitude. There was no need for him to be calculative. Therefore, those thoughts flashed through his mind and when they reached his mouth, only a single sentence came out. What if I don't? What can you do to me if I don't? His sharpness was revealed and his soul shuddered. At that moment, Zhu Yu's vision blurred. Just now, the scholarly man with delicate features seemed to have bared his sharp fangs all of a sudden. Zhu Yu had a hallucination. It was as though this scholar could devour him alive. Chapter 645. Zhu Yu shook his head, as though he wanted to chase that feeling out of his mind. He looked towards Su Zimo once more. The claws, fangs, and sharpness that he had felt earlier had all disappeared. The person opposite him was just quietly riding on the back of the golden lion. He still looked like the frail scholar he was. It was as though a gust of wind could blow him over. Is the identity of a sword formation master your trump card and reliance? Zhu Yu raised his head slightly with a menacing gaze and said slowly, let me tell you, in the ancient battlefield, only cultivators who can cultivate Jin Dan phenomenons can protect themselves. Only those who are on the phenomenon ranking are considered paragons. Before he finished his sentence, the Jin Dan within Zhu Yu's body had already begun circulating furiously. The spirit energy within Zhu Yu's body was thick and boundless with a torrential aura. It was clear that his cultivation realm was at perfected Jin Dan realm. Against the power of the phenomenon, your sword formations and spirit arts are nothing. The killing intent in Zhu Yu's eyes was almost corporeal as he said word by word. If you don't move aside, I'll kill you first. Boom! Before he finished his sentence, the ground shook violently. Su Zimo leaped down from the golden lion's back and stomped heavily on the ground, shooting towards Zhu Yu like an arrow. A deep footprint appeared where he had left, and cracks spread out in all directions. It was too fast. Everyone merely felt their vision blur, and Su Zimo had already vanished from the spot. Pust! Zhu Yu's expression changed starkly. A shuddering fluctuation came from the void ahead and a terrifying aura surged over, almost suffocating him. Buzz! The stars on Zhu Yu's robe shone brightly and released beams of light. However, the light had no effect on the intruder at all. Southern Dipper Star, Zhu Yu hollered. However, his voice stopped abruptly. Su Zimo had already closed in. In the blink of an eye, he reached out and gripped the man's throat, lifting him up from the spot. Zhu Yu could not even breathe, let alone make a sound. Zhu Yu's Jin Dan phenomenon was destroyed before it could be released. Su Zimo's gaze was cold as he gripped Zhu Yu's throat and swung it left and right. A series of strange sounds came from Zhu Yu's body. Creak, creak, crackle. Zhu Yu had a pained expression as he felt as though his bones were about to fall apart. His blood qi and spirit energy had dissipated and he no longer had any strength left. He couldn't even hold on to the flying sword that he had just taken out from his storage bag. And it fell to the ground. The entire process only took an instant. Everyone was stunned on the spot, dumbfounded. In everyone's hearts, although Su Zimo's sword formations and spirit arts were strong, it was as Zhu Yu had said, sword formations and spirit arts were no match for Jin Dan's phenomenon. No one would have thought that the fight between the two would have such an ending. No one had expected Zhu Yu to be defeated so quickly and so tragically. Zhu Yu's tall body was like a little chick in Su Zimo's palm. His legs kicked wildly in the air as he struggled helplessly. Even the golden lion was shocked. In its heart, Zhu Yu's defeat was inevitable. However, it had not expected that Zhu Yu would be restrained before he could even let out a fart. What frightened it even more was that just now, Su Zimo had burst forth. The two of them were a full 100 feet apart. Even if it released its bloodline and charged with all its might, it would not be able to reach that speed. In the golden lion's heart, Su Zimo's strength had risen by another level. You're right. Jin Dan's phenomenon can be considered as the pinnacle of spirit arts, and is indeed perfected, being Jin Dan's strongest attack. Su Zimo looked at Zhu Yu's flushed face and smiled gently. However, the prerequisite is that you have to be able to release it. Fufu. Zhu Yu could not speak at all and could only make strange sounds despite his best efforts. Let go of senior brother Zhu. Fellow Taoist Zhu. Hurry and let go or don't blame us for being impolite. Everyone from Southern Dual Sect summoned their spirit weapons and hollered. Choking Zhu Yu by the throat, Su Zimo turned around slightly and swept his knife-like gaze across everyone from Southern Dual Sect, asking coldly, "You guys want to attack me?" Everyone's heart skipped a beat and they did not dare to meet his gaze. Some of them were even more terrified and felt chills run down their spines when Su Zimo glanced at them. Instinctively, they retreated half a step back and their bodies trembled slightly. Don't! Tang Shiyun was alarmed. She was way too familiar with that gaze of Su Zimo's. Just now, that was the gaze Su Zimo had when he looked at the ancient remnant beasts in that huge battle. That was the gaze of someone who was about to go on a killing spree. Arriving before everyone from Southern Dual Sect, Tang Shiyun said in a deep voice, "Put away your weapons. Have you guys forgotten that just now, if not for fellow Taoist Su, we would have been dead by now? You've just escaped danger, and you're already pointing your weapons at your savior?" Everyone from Southern Dual Sect exchanged glances with ashamed expressions. Not daring to reply, they put away their spirit weapons hurriedly. When he saw that, the killing intent in Su Zimo's eyes dissipated slightly. Earlier on, he had indeed released his killing intent. Everyone from Southern Dual Sect had already forgotten that all of their lives were saved by him. "If I can save you guys, I can naturally kill you guys as well." Tang Shiyun ran before Su Zimo hurriedly and said, "Fellow Taoist Su, they were just anxious and acted rashly. Please don't take it to heart." Su Zimo remained silent and did not comment. However, Tang Shiyun could clearly see that the terrifying gaze of Su Zimo just now was gradually fading away until it vanished. "Fellow Taoist Su, I beg you to spare senior brother Zhu's life," Tang Shiyun said. "Although senior brother Zhu is in the wrong, he only attacked you because he lost control of his emotions because of the death of his kin. In reality, that was also the reason why Su Zimo did not kill Zhu Yu immediately. He had just experienced the pain of his kin passing away, and could naturally empathize with that feeling. Otherwise, he would have crushed Zhu Yu's throat a long time ago based on the fact that he wanted to kill Zhu Yu. There was no way he would have spared Zhu Yu's life until now. Zhu Yu's face was already turning purple, and his eyes were protruding while his tongue was sticking out. Even his consciousness was turning blurry. Fellow Taoist Su, thank you for saving the lives of everyone from Southern Dual Sect. Please spare senior brother Zhu's life as well. Although he's in the wrong, it's not fatal. As Tang Shiyun said that, she was about to kneel down. I, Tang Shiyun, hereby guarantee that no matter what happens in the ancient battlefield from now on, fellow Taoist Su, our Southern Dual Sect will do our best to help you. Su Zimo could naturally sense the sincerity in Tang Shiyun's expression. Furthermore, he had no intention of killing Zhu Yu to begin with. He merely wanted to punish him. There's no need for that. Su Zimo waved his sleeves and stopped Tang Shiyun from kneeling down. At the same time, he released his grip. Zhu Yu slumped to the ground weakly, gasping for air greedily. Hissing sounds could be heard from the depths of his throat, as though he wanted to suck in all the air in the world. Tang Shiyun was delighted. Everyone from Southern Dual Sect heaved a sigh of relief and rushed forward as well. Some of them went to take care of Zhu Yu while others bowed deeply towards Su Zimo. Thank you, fellow Taoist Su. Chapter 646. Su Zimo returned to the back of the Golden Lion and was prepared to leave. Biting her cherry lips gently, Tang Shiyun mustered her courage and cupped her fists. Fellow Taoist Su, it's already dark and we have to find a place to rest as soon as possible. Since the misunderstanding has been resolved, why don't we travel together so that we can take care of one another? In the ancient battlefield, the night was the domain of many demon beasts and mutated living beings. This place was only opened once every 100 years. Everything grew wildly and beasts roamed freely. Many powerful living beings were awakened from their slumber. For most cultivators, traveling through the ancient battlefield at night was equivalent to courting death. Of course, Su Zimo was fearless against that. Just as he was about to reject, Tang Shiyun continued, I know of an ancient city that's the closest to here. It's a day's journey and many cultivators reside there. In the ancient battlefield, there were many ancient cities left behind from the ancient era that could be used to defend against ferocious beasts. If there were powerful sects guarding the ancient cities, they could even defend against most beast stampedes. Tang Shiyun continued, furthermore, I heard that Glass Palace has been occupying that ancient city for the past few years. When he heard that, Su Zimo raised his brows slightly, as though he was tempted. When she saw that slight change, Tang Shiyun was delighted and said hurriedly, Glass Palace is one of the immortal sects, and is the strongest body-tempering super sect in the cultivation world. In fact, their legacy disciples can even fight against ferocious beasts bare-handed. With that super sect guarding the ancient city, there won't be any danger. Initially, Su Zimo was not interested in the ancient city. However, when he heard about Glass Palace, he changed his mind. Back in Tianhuang mainland, he had said that the 13 cities of Yan country would pay with blood. Su Zimo nodded. All right, I'll have to trouble you to lead the way then. It's fine, it's no trouble at all. Tang Shiyun replied gleefully. On the other side, Zhu Yu's panting had already calmed down. He was not injured to begin with and had already recovered after resting for a while. However, when he heard the conversation between Tang Shiyun and Su Zimo, his expression darkened. He lowered his head and his long hair covered his face. His eyes shone coldly as a thought lingered in his mind. He now had two choices. First, he had to bear with it for the time being and gain a better understanding of this person before looking for an opportunity. The second option was to strike now and unleash his full cultivation. He would release the Jin Dan avatar and not give this person a chance to get close to him. Zhu Yu hesitated for a long time but did not make a move in the end. He really couldn't figure out if Su Zimo had any other tricks up his sleeve. If this person still had a powerful trump card that he had yet to reveal, then if he were to act rashly, he would not only lose face but also his life. Su Zimo's gaze had been drifting towards Zhu Yu from time to time. Zhu Yu completely did not know that he had just walked one round around the gates of hell. He thought that he had hidden it well, but little did he know that Su Zimo's spiritual senses were too terrifying. He could sense his hostility clearly. As long as he made the slightest move, he would already be a dead man. The sky was dark, and a layer of night had already covered it. Let's go. Let's find a place to rest for the night. Su Zimo patted the golden lion beneath him and said, Go and find him. Oh, the golden lion replied weakly. As a pure-blooded ferocious beast, it naturally knew best which places were relatively safe in the ancient battlefield. Furthermore, it was subdued and taken in as a mount by Su Zimo. It felt utterly humiliated and wanted nothing more than to avoid all demon beasts. Therefore, the Golden Lion carried Su Zimo and sprinted at the front. Everyone from Southern Dual Sect followed closely behind. Before long, everyone arrived at the bottom of a mountain peak and found a cave. The Golden Lion stood at the entrance of the cave with widened eyes and perked up ears, sniffing furiously to check if there were any other living beings within. Go on in. It's empty inside. Before it could find anything, Su Zimo patted its head once more. Su Zimo cultivated the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness, and his eyesight, hearing and sense of smell were much sharper than the Golden Lion's. The Golden Lion was doubtful and entered cautiously. Indeed, it did not discover anything after circling around. There were many twists and turns in the cave, but it was connected from the front to the back with 2 exits. That was good as well. If they were truly ambushed, they would have a way out. Su Zimo said, "You guys can rest near the entrance here. I'll head to the entrance at the back of the mountain. We'll gather here at daybreak and set off." "All right," Tang Shiyun nodded. After pondering for a moment, Tang Shiyun pulled Su Zimo to a corner and glanced at the Golden Lion not far away. She whispered, "Fellow Taoist Su, aren't you being a little careless by not signing a blood oath with this Golden Lion?" Su Zimo smiled and did not explain. When Tang Shiyun saw how nonchalant Su Zimo was, she reminded, "It's a pure-blooded ferocious beast after all. Although it's subservient to you for the time being, its wild nature is hard to tame. When you're resting, it's best that you don't get too close to it lest it kills you." "Yes, got it." Tang Shiyun had good intentions after all, and Su Zimo could not point it out as he nodded in agreement. Thereafter, Su Zimo and the Golden Lion left the place. After many twists and turns, they arrived at the entrance of the cave at the back. The night gradually darkened. Outside the cave, the roars of ferocious beasts could be heard one after another. From time to time, the hurried cries of ferocious birds could be heard, sharp and ear-piercing. The sound of some ants crawling on the ground was even more hair-raising. The Golden Lion was sprawled out in its sleep, drooling. Su Zimo rested his arms behind his head and closed his eyes motionlessly. He had been in that position for 4 hours, as though he had fallen asleep a long time ago. All of a sudden, in the darkness, the Golden Lion flipped over and opened its eyes slowly without making a sound. Those eyes were bright and frightening. There was no hint of sleep at all. It had not slept the entire time. Tomorrow they would arrive at the ancient city where cultivators gathered, and it would no longer have a chance to escape. Therefore, tonight was its only chance. The Golden Lion looked at Su Zimo, who was sleeping soundly not far away, and hesitated for a moment before lamenting internally, "Forget it. I'll spare your life tonight on account of the fact that you didn't force me to sign a blood oath." The Golden Lion rose slowly and tiptoed out of the cave. Before it left, a voice sounded from within the cave. "Where are you going?" The Golden Lion shuddered and its fur stood on end. It did not dare to turn back and replied with a trembling voice, "To pee outside." There was no sound behind it, as though it had agreed. As though it had been pardoned, the Golden Lion tried its best to compose itself and walked out of the cave unhurriedly. Arriving beside a green rock, it peered into the cave while pretending to pee. It was dark and deep inside. There was no movement and it was silent. "Humph, to think that you would believe me when I said that I was going to pee." The Golden Lion sneered and lamented internally, "At the end of the day, I'm still smarter than you. By the time you realize what happened, I'll be thousands of miles away." The Golden Lion turned around. Just as it was about to escape, it subconsciously raised its head and glanced over. On an ancient tree not far away, a green-robed scholar was sitting on a branch. His eyes were clear as he swung his legs leisurely, looking at it with a fake smile. "Oh my God, oh my God!" The Golden Lion was so scared that it fell to the ground. In its panic, it spoke in human language and said a string of words that no one knew where it had heard from. Chapter 647. Late at night. In the ancient battlefield, beasts roared and birds shrieked. All sorts of sounds filled the world one after another. A towering mountain peak was lush with ancient trees and many powerful ferocious beasts lived on it. Strangely, the entire mountain peak was completely silent. In the dense forest of leaves, pairs of green eyes of beasts appeared. They were looking at the peak of the mountain with fear in their eyes. Two figures stood on the mountain peak. One of them was tall. Although he looked like a human, he was not wearing any clothes and his body and cheeks were covered in long hair. His arms were extremely long and drooped down naturally, reaching his knees. It was clearly a demon beast. The long-haired demon beast had a dark expression as it stood on the mountain peak, looking at a majestic ancient city in the distance. A hint of blood flashed in the depths of its eyes. The other figure looked extremely muscular with bulging flesh that was filled with black and yellow patterns, as though it was molten steel. It shook its tiger head with a ferocious glint in its eyes. The tiger-headed demon beast turned around and whispered to the long-haired demon beast beside it, "Boss, this ancient city has not fallen since ancient times and is guarded by many cultivators. I'm afraid it'll be difficult to take it down." "You're afraid?" the long-haired demon beast asked with a blood glint in its eyes. "No." The tiger-headed demon shuddered and shook its head hurriedly. After a while, the tiger-headed demon asked again, "Boss, when are we attacking?" "We'll have to wait." "He's not here yet." The long-haired demon beast shook its head. "What if he doesn't come?" "He'll definitely come." With that said, the long-haired demon beast turned around and opened its mouth, letting out a deafening roar towards the forest at the foot of the mountain. The ancient trees swayed and the demons dispersed gradually. Morning. Suzimo rode the golden lion and arrived at the entrance of the cave ahead. The golden lion was listless and its eyes were listless, even more listless than yesterday. It was scared half to death by Suzimo the previous night and was on tenterhooks the entire night, not daring to sleep. Now that it woke up early in the morning, it was no longer energetic. Of course, the greatest blow to it was still mental. In its opinion, unless this scholar was willing to be merciful and let it go, otherwise, it could only be this scholar's mount for the rest of its life. The eyes of everyone from the southern dual sect were all red as they felt drowsy. Although this cave was extremely well hidden, everyone did not dare to sleep when they heard all kinds of noises coming from outside. They stayed awake all night with their eyes wide open. Only Suzimo was full of energy and seemed to have rested well. He cultivated the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness. Even when he was sleeping, he was cultivating while breathing and was not affected at all. Zhuyu glanced at Suzimo without saying a word. Tang Shiyun smiled at Suzimo and nodded in acknowledgement. Everyone reorganized themselves and headed towards the nearest ancient city under Tang Shiyun's lead. Along the way, Tang Shiyun seemed to be extremely curious about Suzimo as she walked beside him and asked, "Fellow Taoist Su, which major region are you from?" "The North region." "Oh, our southern dual sect is from the South region. The North and South regions are billions of miles apart. If not for this ancient battlefield, we might not have met in this lifetime. This is also a rare fate." Zhuyu did not say anything and followed behind the two of them with a dark expression. Tang Shiyun said, "Ah, right, Glass Palace is from the North region as well. Fellow Taoist Su, you should have heard of it, right?" "Yes, I've had some dealings with them," Suzimo replied. When he heard that, Zhuyu could not help but stifle a laugh. "Fellow Taoist Su, don't brag and bite your tongue. Glass Palace is one of the immortal sections. Since you don't belong to any sect, how are you qualified to come into contact with them?" That might not be the case. Tang Shiyun was afraid that the two of them would get into a conflict again and added hurriedly. Suzimo smiled without saying anything. Along the way, they saw many human skeletons in the wilderness. Some of them still had flesh and blood that hadn't completely dried up. It was a ghastly sight. Almost all of those humans died last night. If they could not find a place to hide or a city before nightfall, most of the cultivators would not be able to escape from death. While cultivators slaughtered demons, demons would eat humans as well. That was the cruelty of the ancient battlefield where ferocious beasts roamed. In the evening, a row of ancient pitch-black city walls finally appeared on the horizon ahead. A majestic and ancient city gradually entered their vision. When they got closer, they could see a circle of cultivators standing on the city walls with cold expressions and sharp gazes. All of them wore the same Dao robes and were clearly from the same sect. On the city wall right above the city gate, there was a triangular flag with 2 big words written on it, Lily. More than 10 glass palace cultivators stood on both sides of the city gates. By the time Su Zimo and the others arrived, the city gates were about to close. The glass palace cultivators urged loudly with impatient expressions. A city gate guard glanced at everyone from Southern Dual Sect and extended his palm, saying expressionlessly, 20 soul-nourishing blood ginsengs per person. What? Wasn't it supposed to be 10? Why did the price double? Everyone from Southern Dual Sect could not help but clamor. Tang Shiyun frowned slightly as well and whispered to Su Zimo, normally speaking, everyone has to collect 10 soul-nourishing blood ginsengs to enter the city. For some reason the price doubled all of a sudden. What's the fuss about? A city gate guard said indifferently with a cold expression. The city gates are about to close. If you don't have any, you guys can wait outside. When they heard that, everyone from Southern Dual Sect felt their hearts sink. If they were to leave everyone outside at this moment, it would be equivalent to sending them to their deaths. Zhu Yu tidied his robes and walked forward, saying in a deep voice, I'm Zhu Yu of Southern Dual Sect. I wonder if you guys can make an exception? Southern Dual Sect, one of the 108 upper sects? Zhu Yu, someone on the previous Jindan phenomenon ranking? The 2 city gate guards asked with a frown. That's right. Zhu Yu replied proudly. The 2 glass palace cultivators exchanged glances and nodded. In that case you'll have to hand over 10 soul-nourishing blood ginsengs. The rest of you will have to hand over 20 more. Cultivators who could make it onto the Jindan phenomenon ranking were true paragons and they had to give them some face. When Zhu Yu saw that the 2 of them were resolute, he could not force them and nodded. Everyone from Southern Dual Sect was helpless and could only hand over the soul-nourishing blood ginsengs that they had risked multiple dangers to retrieve over the past few days. Su Zimo did not have any soul-nourishing blood ginsengs. Tang Shiyun took the initiative to hand over 20 for him. Su Zimo thanked her and said in a seemingly casual manner, I'll return it to you tenfold in the future. Everyone entered the city one after another. Zhu Yu did not say much along the way. Now that he finally regained some dignity, he looked at Su Zimo provocatively and mocked, Su Zimo, didn't you say that you fought with Glass Palace before? Why didn't you greet them earlier on? Fufu, why aren't you arrogant in front of Glass Palace? Su Zimo did not say anything. He could not be bothered with Zhu Yu at all, because from the moment he entered the city, he felt a strand of faintly discernible killing intent. He didn't know how many pairs of eyes hidden in the dark glanced at him. One after another, spirit cranes disappeared into the darkness. The fish has taken the bait. Chapter 648. In the ancient city, most of the buildings that were preserved were made of gigantic rocks, and were filled with the traces of time. Some of them were mansions, some were relatively small stone houses and chambers. There were also some large palaces that were scattered all over the ancient city. One could vaguely see the prosperity of this place in the past. Of course, there were also many relatively new buildings in the ancient city that were built by later generations. Although it was already evening, there were still many cultivators shuttling back and forth on the wide streets of the ancient city in a bustling manner. On both sides of the streets, there were glass palace cultivators every 1,000 feet. From time to time, there were even cultivators patrolling in midair. It looked like security was tight. Strange, Zhu Yu frowned slightly and whispered, Glass Palace sent many cultivators for the opening of the ancient battlefield this time round. Something seems to have happened. I guess Glass Palace wants to obtain a good ranking on the Jindan phenomenon ranking this time round. A Southern Dual Sect cultivator said. No, Zhu Yu shook his head. The Jindan phenomenon ranking is based on an individual's combat strength. It has nothing to do with the strength of a sect or the number of people. Su Zimo rode on the Golden Lion and listened to everyone's discussions with an indifferent expression. However, there was a hint of mockery in his eyes from time to time. Fellow Taoist, please hold on. Zhu Yu stopped a green-robed cultivator and cupped his fists. Fellow Taoist, may I ask what happened in Glass Palace? Why do I feel like I'm facing a great enemy? The green-robed cultivator sized Zhu Yu up and asked instead, Fellow Taoist, you're not from the North region, right? I'm from the southern region's upper sect, Southern Dual Sect. Zhu Yu's tone revealed a hint of arrogance. After all, in Tianhuang mainland, apart from the super sects such as the immortal Buddhist, fiend and heretical sects, the 108 upper sects were the most famous. Indeed, the green-robed cultivator returned with cupped fists hurriedly and whispered, "Fellow Taoist, you might not know, but that monster incarnate of the North region has returned alive." Monster incarnate? What monster incarnate? Zhu Yu asked hurriedly. Everyone from Southern Dual Sect gathered with curious expressions. The green-robed cultivator said, "What other monster incarnate?" "That monster incarnate of Divine Phoenix Island." Ah! A look of realization flashed through Zhu Yu's eyes. He had also heard some rumors about the monstrous geniuses of Divine Phoenix Island. In the elementary ancient battlefield, this monster incarnate of Divine Phoenix Island defeated all the paragons beneath the human emperor's palace and swept through all the strong foes. Obtaining the recognition of the human emperor caused quite a stir in Tianhuang mainland. The green-robed cultivator continued, "I heard that before entering the ancient battlefield, that monster incarnate declared war on Glass Palace and said that he would kill all the cultivators of Glass Palace in the ancient battlefield." "Why?" Tang Shiyun couldn't help but ask. "I heard that it's because the Glass Palace once massacred the mortals of the 13 cities. That's why this monster wants to go on a killing spree," replied the green-robed cultivator. Everyone from the Southern Dual Sect was stunned. In their understanding, who would be willing to offend a major faction like Glass Palace for a mere mortal? How foolish! Zhu Yu sneered. Perfected being Jin Dan wants to go against Glass Palace? He truly doesn't know his place. Frowning slightly, Tang Shiyun said, "I feel that he's not a bad person since he's willing to stand up for mortals." Not a bad person? The green-robed cultivator sneered. This monster incarnate came out of seclusion and started a beast stampede, killing millions of cultivators. Corpses littered the ground and blood flowed like rivers, and you're saying that he's not a bad person? Ah! Tang Shiyun's expression changed slightly. Millions of cultivators was not a small number. Also, the green-robed cultivator continued, that monster incarnate's Dantian was crippled 20 years ago. Right now he's a demon in name only. Anyone who isn't of our race will be killed by all cultivators in the world. Noticing that Glass Palace cultivators were patrolling over, Zhu Yu shouted hurriedly, "That's right. Cultivators of our generation cultivate to slay demons and fiends. If that monster dares to come here, I, Zhu Yu of Southern Dual Sect, will be the first to strike." The patrolling Glass Palace cultivators merely glanced at Zhu Yu indifferently before brushing past everyone. The green-robed cultivator cupped his fists and bade farewell to Zhu Yu as well. Everyone continued forward, preparing to look for an empty house to rest in. "Fellow Taoist Su, you're from the North region as well. You've heard of the monster incarnate of Divine Phoenix Island who killed millions of cultivators, right?" Tang Shiyun turned around and chatted with Su Zimo. "I've heard of him," Su Zimo nodded. Tang Shiyun seemed to be rather interested in the monster incarnate of Divine Phoenix Island as she asked, "Why did that person kill so many cultivators?" He's a demon and cultivators are humans. That's the reason." Zhu Yu harumphed and interrupted. Tang Shiyun frowned and asked in confusion, "Then why did he stand up for those mortals?" Zhu Yu was speechless for a moment. Tang Shiyun turned around and asked again, "It sounds like the monster incarnate of Divine Phoenix Island was originally a human. What's his name?" "Fellow Taoist Su, have you heard of him?" Su Zimo smiled gently. "I think his name is Su Zimo." Everyone from Southern Dual Sect froze. Suddenly the air went silent. The atmosphere was a little strange. Exclamation point. Tang Shiyun was the first to laugh out loud. Reaching out, she punched Su Zimo on the shoulder gently and chided, "That joke isn't funny at all." "What's wrong?" Su Zimo asked with a smile. Tang Shiyun said, "Didn't you hear what they said? The Dantian of the monster incarnate of Divine Phoenix Island is crippled. And he doesn't even have spirit energy. How can it be you?" When they heard that, everyone from Southern Dual Sect exchanged glances and heaved a sigh of relief, relaxing. For a moment earlier, everyone truly thought that the Su Zimo beside them was the monster incarnate of Divine Phoenix Island. However, Tang Shiyun's words immediately set everyone's minds at ease. The Dantian of the monster incarnate of Divine Phoenix Island was crippled, and everyone saw with their own eyes that Su Zimo possessed spirit energy. There was no way the two of them were the same person. The night gradually darkened and the skies were dotted with stars. Right then, a glass palace cultivator hurried over and stood in front of Zhu Yu and the others, cupping his fists. Our sect is holding a banquet in the main hall of the city, and we invite everyone from Southern Dual Sect to attend. All right. Zhu Yu was delighted and instantly felt as though he was basking in the glow as he looked at Su Zimo provocatively. Su Zimo was oblivious and merely gazed up at the firmaments with a deep gaze. A faint smile hung on his lips as he murmured softly, "A dark and windy night to kill." At the same time, in the wilderness of the primordial battlefield, a slightly plump cultivator in a gray Taoist robe was strolling leisurely. Many ferocious beasts brushed past him, but they did not react at all, as though they could not see him. Flying beasts flew over his head as though they did not see him as well. The gray-robed cultivator gripped a paper fan in his left hand and tapped his fingers repeatedly at an extremely fast speed, as though he was calculating something. After walking for a while, the gray-robed cultivator sensed something and suddenly raised his head. The gray-robed cultivator's expression changed. Above the firmaments, many constellations were changing positions continuously, and the constellations in the skies were in a complete mess. Thus, the gray-robed cultivator gasped with a grim expression. What a strong killing intent. To think that it would affect the firmaments and cause the stars to shift. Seems like something big is about to happen. Chapter 649. Under the lead of the Glass Palace cultivators, everyone from Southern Dual Sect arrived at a majestic hall at the center of the ancient city. At that moment, there were already many cultivators gathered in the hall from various major sects and factions. Everyone from Southern Dual Sect was inconspicuous among them. There were many cultivators riding on ancient remnant beasts around them, and many demon beasts roared in a lively manner. In fact, there were even some perfected Jindan cultivators who rode on ancient war chariots. Some rode on Wrms while some stood on ancient ferocious beasts. All of them had an imposing aura. Su Zimo rode on a golden lion, but it was nothing much. What's the meaning of Glass Palace's invitation to this banquet? I don't know either. I don't know what the theme of this banquet is. I'm guessing that it's because of that monster incarnate of Divine Phoenix Island. They want us to keep an eye out for him and contact Glass Palace if we discover any traces of him. There was a commotion. Any reputable cultivator would have a seat in the main hall. Some itinerant cultivators or cultivators from small sects surrounded the hall and watched the commotion. Zhu Yu glanced at Su Zimo at the side and smirked, raising his head. Fellow Taoist Su, if not for Southern Dual Sect, you wouldn't have been able to enter given your status. Do you understand? It might not be a good thing to enter this hall, Su Zimo replied indifferently. Humph. Zhu Yu sneered and was about to argue when Tang Shiyun interrupted them hurriedly and pointed to the side. Look, someone's coming over. Not far away, a group of cultivators tore through the air. The leader wore faint golden robes and had his hands behind his back. He had a dignified appearance and sharp brows. His eyes were bright and seemed to reflect a rainbow glass light. That's Glass Palace's Yi Tiancheng. So, it's him. I heard that after the number 1 Jindan perfected being of the North region, Shi Wuya, passed away 20 years ago, Yi Tiancheng took over and replaced Shi Wuya. Su Zimo's gaze turned cold when he heard the name Yi Tiancheng. Demoness Ji had once told him that Yi Tiancheng, one of Xuanyu Doran's disciples, was the leader of the group that led Glass Palace to massacre the cultivators of the 13 cities of Yan country. Su Zimo shifted his gaze and looked behind Yi Tiancheng. His eyes narrowed slightly. 2 gray-haired old men followed closely behind. They seemed to be on the verge of death, but these 2 old men gave Su Zimo an extremely dangerous feeling. Sealer. Those 2 old men were definitely sealers of the nascent soul realm. Su Zimo sneered secretly. In reality, although sealers were at nascent soul realm in the ancient battlefield and could utilize dermic powers, they did not pose much of a threat to him. That was because the primordial battlefield was a fragment of space and was not stable. The limitations of a sealer were too great. As long as he unleashed the power of a nascent soul realm cultivator, It would definitely cause space to tremble. Spatial cracks would appear and devour him. In other words, sealers usually only had one chance to attack. If the attack failed, the sealer would be the one to die. Behind the three of them, there were dozens of perfected Jin Dan. In the blink of an eye, Yi Tianqing's group arrived at the top of the hall. Surveying their surroundings and looking down at the many cultivators below, they let out a meaningful smile. Everyone. Yi Tianqing's voice was neither loud nor soft. However, it spread throughout the hall. Gradually, the crowd quietened down. I'm sure everyone is curious about the purpose of today's banquet. Yi Tianqing smiled. Actually, it's very simple. I just don't want everyone to miss out on a good show. The cultivators below all revealed puzzled expressions. Yi Tianqing said slowly, I'm sure everyone has heard that a monster incarnate has appeared in the North region. He's inhumane and slaughtered millions of cultivators. He even declared that he would kill cultivators of Glass Palace. I've heard of him. The monster incarnate of Divine Phoenix Island. I know him. His name is Su Zimo. Yes, I heard that he likes to wear green robes and looks like a scholar. Voices could be heard from the crowd. The expressions of everyone from Southern Dual Sect changed gradually as they turned around and looked at Su Zimo instinctively. Zhu Yu's heart skipped a beat when he heard that, and his eyes were filled with shock. Su Zimo patted him on the shoulder gently and said gently, Don't be afraid. Zhu Yu shuddered and his hair stood on end. Yi Tianqing's gaze shifted to everyone from Southern Dual Sect, and he said with a fake smile, Right now, I'll tell everyone that this monster incarnate is among you. The crowd was in an uproar. Everyone from Southern Dual Sect was in a mess as they looked at Su Zimo in fear and retreated with all their might to distance themselves from him. Many cultivators followed Yi Tianqing's gaze and gradually noticed Su Zimo as well. It's him. The monster incarnate of Divine Phoenix Island. He really dared to come. In the blink of an eye, Su Zimo was isolated in the hall. Tang Shiyun stood on the spot and looked at Su Zimo in a daze, as though she could not react in time. Despite the situation, Su Zimo was still calm and composed. Turning around, he asked softly, Why aren't you leaving? I don't know. Tang Shiyun shook her head with a pained expression. I only know that you've saved me and are my benefactor. I can't. On the contrary, Zhu Yu only turned to Su Zimo after distancing himself from him. He cupped his fists emotionally and said, Fellow Taoist Yi, I'm Zhu Yu of Southern Dual Sect. I've only met this person by chance and I truly don't know his identity. Yes, we don't know him. The other Southern Dual Sect cultivators chimed in hurriedly, wanting nothing more than to draw a clear line with Su Zimo. That beast. Those who aren't of our race are definitely of a different heart. Kill him and pay for the lives of those millions of cultivators. Kill. 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 The crowd was agitated and riled up. Everyone's eyes were bloodshot and it was as though they wanted to skin Su Zimo alive. Many cultivators formed a torrential aura that crushed over. Even if they did not attack, anyone else would have broken down mentally. Although the golden lion was a pure-blooded ferocious beast, it was so scared that it sprawled on the ground, not daring to move at all. A single spirit art from each of them was enough to smash it into ashes. It lamented internally and truly wanted to cry, but no tears came out. However, Su Zimo was still calm. An invisible aura shrouded his body and was incomparably domineering. In fact, he could even fight against all the cultivators inside and outside the hall without being disadvantaged. Ha 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 ha. Yi Tianqing reared his head in laughter and looked down at Su Zimo from above. Su Zimo, to think that you would have the guts to enter the city. However, you're not qualified to fight against Glass Palace. Su Zimo was expressionless as he surveyed his surroundings and said slowly, This is a feud between me and Glass Palace and has nothing to do with you guys. Those who don't want to get involved in this mess should leave as soon as possible. Bullsh *T. Zhu Yu hollered and declared righteously, You're a demon and all the cultivators in the world want to kill you. Yi Tianqing sneered and declared, Everyone. There's only a single dish for today's banquet. The flesh of this monster incarnate. His blood qi is rich and his flesh contains a powerful life force essence. It's a great tonic. It's up to you guys to decide who gets to enjoy this dish. Many cultivators licked their lips instinctively and their eyes shone with excitement. Good, good, good. Su Zimo nodded repeatedly and said indifferently, since that's the case, don't blame me for starting a massacre. Chapter 650. Go on a killing spree? Along the way, Zhu Yu was already displeased with Su Zimo. At that moment, he could not help but sneer coldly and release his Jin Dan phenomenon without hesitation, shouting, "You'll have to get through me first." Southern Dual Constellation. Boom! Initially, the firmaments were filled with stars. Suddenly, 6 stars lit up and burst forth with a bedazzling light that enveloped Su Zimo. A series of terrifying auras burst forth from Zhu Yu's side. It was the power of phenomenons. Escape by yourself. Su Zimo patted the golden lion beneath him and leaped down. With a cold gaze, his figure flashed and he vanished from the spot instantly. Swoosh! In the blink of an eye, Su Zimo had already arrived before Zhu Yu. Swoosh! It was too fast. Most cultivators could not react in time. OM! Su Zimo spoke in Sanskrit descended. Poof! 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 Everyone from Southern Dual Sect who stood beside Zhu Yu and wanted to draw a clear line with Su Zimo exploded instantly and blood spewed everywhere. None of them were spared. Everyone was shaken into nothingness by a single Sanskrit sound. Zhu Yu's expression changed starkly as well. A single Sanskrit word was enough to shake his golden core phenomenon. Above the firmaments, the 6 stars of the Southern Dual swayed continuously and flickered. They were showing signs of falling. So strong! Zhu Yu was shocked. In reality, if not for the protection of the Jin Dan phenomenon, that single Sanskrit sound would have been enough to kill him at this distance. His outcome would not be much better than his fellow sect members around him. Before Zhu Yu could finish his thought, his vision blurred. Su Zimo's figure did not pause at all. He bent his knees and pushed forward. Like a galloping horse, his qi and blood surged as he charged straight at Chu Li. His aura was terrifying. Bang! There was a momentary pause between the two of them. Immediately after, Zhu Yu's figure was sent flying. The power of the phenomenon surrounding his body was completely shattered, and the 6 stars of the southern dipper in the sky dimmed completely. His body was torn apart in midair, and his blood dyed the void. Ah! Exclamations came from the crowd. Most of the cultivators in the ancient city had heard of Su Zimo's reputation, but very few had actually seen him in action. In other words, most of the people who had seen him in action had already died. Now everyone saw that Su Zimo was actually so powerful that he could actually shatter Jin Dan's phenomenon with just his flesh and blood. Their minds were greatly impacted. Was it possible for one's physical body and bloodline power to reach such a level? One had to know that Zhu Yu was once on the Jin Dan phenomenon ranking. Although he was ranked last, he was still one of the geniuses. No one had expected that Zhu Yu would not even last a single round after releasing the Jin Dan phenomenon. 20 years ago, Su Zimo was powerful. However, his physical body and bloodline power were not at that level yet. 20 years later, no one had witnessed his true combat strength. When Yi Tiancheng and the others saw that, their pupils constricted slightly. However, they were still composed and a look of mockery flashed through their eyes instead. Glass Palace was naturally well prepared for their entry into the ancient battlefield this time round. Everything before them had yet to escape from Glass Palace's control. Shoo! 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 Countless flying swords tore through the air. Countless spirit arts blanketed the skies as they smashed over. Su Zimo glared at Yi Tiancheng, who was standing at the top of the hall with killing intent surging in his eyes. His blood qi rumbled like a tsunami and it was shocking. Boom! Su Zimo stomped his feet and vanished instantly. The limestone on the spot exploded with spiderweb-like cracks that extended in all directions. A figure charged into the crowd and sent many cultivators flying like a lethal weapon that was unstoppable. Most of the flying swords and spirit arts missed. When some of the flying swords approached, Su Zimo reached out with both hands and grabbed wildly in the void. Most of the incoming flying swords were caught in his palms. Break! Su Zimo exerted strength with both hands and hollered. Crack! 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 The flying swords in his palms were snapped by his bare hands. Most of the flying swords were supreme-grade flying swords. The sharpness of supreme-grade flying swords could no longer injure Su Zimo's body. Kill! Many spirit arts descended. Suddenly, Su Zimo opened his mouth and released Thunderclap Kill. A deafening roar gushed out along with the power of thunder. The entire hall was shaking. Right in front of everyone, countless spirit arts shattered before they could even make contact with Su Zimo's body, turning into specks of spirit light that dissipated into the world. The crowd was shocked. Although there were endless rumors about the monster incarnate of Divine Phoenix Island, they would never be able to feel this shock without witnessing it personally. At that moment, none of the cultivators in the ancient city realized it yet. The true massacre had only just begun. What they saw right now was merely the tip of the iceberg of this monster incarnate of history. Su Zimo soared through the air and no one could withstand his sharpness. Su Zimo could even shatter phenomenons on the ranking with his bare hands. The Jindan phenomenons of ordinary cultivators could not stop him at all. He was closing in on Yi Tiancheng. Senior brother Yi, should we activate the formation? Behind Yi Tiancheng, a glass palace cultivator whispered. There's no need. Yi Tiancheng's hands were hidden deep within his sleeves. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly as he said faintly, I'm itching to test my skills. I want to see how strong this evildoer is in close combat. Senior brother Yi, there's no need to risk yourself, right? Another glass palace cultivator frowned slightly. Risk myself? Yi Tiancheng harumphed coldly. Back then, my melee combat strength was not inferior to Shi Wuya's. How can you say that I'm risking myself? Furthermore, Glass Palace is famous for our body tempering. Why would we be afraid of a beast? Watch out, senior brother Yi. Everyone from Glass Palace stopped persuading him. Yi Tiancheng's expression was cold. In a flash, he charged towards Su Zimo, who was charging towards him. Su Zimo, lend me a punch. Striding forward, Yi Tiancheng's blood qi surged and his beard flared furiously as he punched viciously towards Su Zimo's head. Although he punched, his palm was still hidden within his sleeves and was not revealed. Only the outline of a fist could be vaguely seen. Su Zimo narrowed his gaze and retaliated with a punch in return without dodging or retreating. Apart from Di'in, who was at the top of the Jindan phenomenon ranking, he had not encountered anyone else in the same cultivation realm who could match him head-on in melee combat. When he saw that Su Zimo chose to take it head-on, Yi Tiancheng's eyes lit up with uncontrollable excitement. Bang! The fists collided. Between the two fists, Yi Tiancheng's sleeves shattered instantly and turned into butterflies. Yi Tiancheng's fists shone brightly and 6 spirit patterns appeared. The gloves on his hands were connate spirit weapons. That was his killing move. Therefore, Su Zimo was not taking on a physical body, but a connate spirit weapon. Their fists had already collided and it was too late for Yi Tiancheng to dodge. In the best-case scenario, Su Zimo's arm would be crippled. In the worst-case scenario, Yi Tiancheng could take advantage of the situation and kill him on the spot. Haha. Su Zimo, hand over your life. Yi Tiancheng laughed menacingly. Before his laughter ended, his heart sank. There was no hint of panic in Su Zimo's eyes. They were calm as still water. Something's not right. Before Yi Tiancheng could finish his thought, he glanced over. Su Zimo's fist merely collided with him gently before turning limp and powerless, coiling around him like an anaconda. A coil, a tremble, and a tug. Shing! A blood mist filled the air. Yi Tiancheng's arm was ripped off by Su Zimo. Even if they were at the end of their lifespans and did not have many years left to live, no cultivator would be willing to enter the ancient battlefield. This time round, Glass Palace had mobilized a total of 6 sealers. It was clear how much importance Glass Palace placed on Su Zimo. No matter what, Su Zimo's challenge letter still brought immense pressure to Glass Palace. At that moment, Yi Tiancheng's wounds were bandaged. He glared at Su Zimo with a venomous gaze and grit his teeth. Su Zimo, today I'm going to slice off your flesh piece by piece and devour them alive. I'm going to torture you to death. Ha ha ha. Su Zimo stood in midair and roared in laughter. You want to take my life with just 4 sealers? Humph. Yi Tiancheng laughed menacingly. Su Zimo, don't get cocky. My glazed glass palace predicted that you would come to us on your own and have long prepared. Take this. The sealer on the east wall changed his fingertips repeatedly and his glabella shone, shooting out beams of light that landed on a circular spirit weapon before him. Whoosh! The circular spirit weapon flipped and released a beam of light that shrouded Suzimo. Demon revealing mirror. Suzimo's expression changed slightly as he channeled his blood chi. His figure flashed repeatedly as he tried to break free from the range of the demon revealing mirror's light. However, no matter how fast his movement technique was, it was not as fast as the speed of light. The demon revealing mirror did not harm demon beasts to begin with. Its only use was to seal the inner core or essence spirit. Therefore, when a demon beast's inner core was sealed and lost its power, it would revert to its true form. Whoosh! Another beam of light came from the west and descended instantly, enveloping him. Suzimo's body shuddered. A mysterious power wanted to seep into his body and act on the circulating inner core in his chest. However, the Mingwang prayer beads on his left wrist shone and blocked the power outside. The Mingwang prayer beads were connate dermic weapons to begin with. Although it was incomplete due to the lack of 2 Buddha beads, some of its mysterious dermic powers were still preserved. When the beam of light shrouded Suzimo paused for a moment and channeled his blood chi furiously. The power of his inner core burst forth and his speed increased explosively. He managed to break free from the beam of light. A sealer exclaimed softly. A demon revealing mirror can't take him down. Thankfully we were prepared. Whoosh! Whoosh! Another 2 beams of light shrouded him. Suzimo could not dodge and was rooted to the spot by the 2 beams of light. Immediately after, the first 2 beams of light descended on Suzimo at the same time. There were a total of 4 demon revealing mirrors in the east, south, west and north. 4 beams of light descended and shrouded Suzimo's surroundings. Suzimo could clearly sense that his inner core could no longer circulate and was completely sealed. At the end of the day, the Mingwang prayer beads were incomplete dermic weapons. However, Suzimo had not cultivated an essence spirit and could not release the true strength of the Mingwang prayer beads. It was already his limit to defend against a single demon revealing mirror with that incomplete dermic weapon. Now that Glass Palace had released 4 demon revealing mirrors, the Mingwang prayer beads could not defend against them either. Omnidirectional demon suppression formation. The 4 sealers shouted at the same time with solemn expressions. Suddenly, a series of mysterious symbols lit up in the area of the 4 beams of light from the demon revealing mirrors. Suzimo grunted dully and the pressure on him increased. Under the combined efforts of the 4 sealers, the 4 demon revealing mirrors formed a formation. The formation enveloped Suzimo like a Mount Meru and exerted pressure on him repeatedly, nailing him to the spot without being able to move at all. Suzimo could clearly sense that the bones in his body were trembling slightly and creaking in an extremely terrifying manner. Suzimo refused to lower his head and grit his teeth. His eyes shone with a ferocious glint as he channeled his bloodline with all his might to withstand the pressure from his spine, and the veins on his neck popped. One after another, dimensional tears appeared on the walls of the 4 directions. The 4 sealers were devoured one after another. However, the formation was already formed and the situation was set. Even if the sealers were dead, there was no way Suzimo could break free. Chapter 652. That scene shocked all the cultivators in the ancient city. The death of 4 sealers in exchange for a chance to kill Suzimo seemed like a hefty price to pay. However, it had to be said that this was the only way to ensure that nothing would go wrong. That was because even if the 6 sealers of Glass Palace were to join forces, they might not be able to kill Suzimo. Right now, the demon-revealing mirrors erected on the walls of the 4 directions were activated with dermic powers, and formed a formation that targeted demons, suppressing Suzimo completely on the spot, without being able to move at all. That power was far beyond the scope of the Jindan realm. Even if 100 pure-blooded ferocious beasts were to arrive, they would have been suppressed into meat paste. In other words, the Suzimo from 20 years ago would not have lasted more than 10 breaths. Ha 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 ha. Yi Tianqing's face was pale after losing a lot of blood after his arm was ripped off. However, He reared his head in laughter and grit his teeth. Su Zimo, why aren't you arrogant anymore? So what if you're the strongest monster incarnate in history? You're still going to die against the omnidirectional demon suppression formation of Glass Palace. Su Zimo's expression was dark and he said nothing. Splash! The bloodline in his body was already channeled to its limits, and the dull sound of a tsunami echoed. Heads surged. Countless cultivators formed a tide and surrounded Su Zimo in the middle, circle after circle. All the cultivators wanted to witness the moment of the strongest monster incarnate in history's death personally. Outside the crowd, a burly man with a head of yellow hair stood at the side. He looked at the green-robed man who was rooted to the spot in the middle of the ancient city and could not help but smack his lips and mutter, "What a pity. A monster incarnate of a generation is killed by a bunch of people just like that. Although you suppressed me and forced me to become your mount, you don't have long to live. Let's forget about our grudge." The burly man with yellow hair was none other than the Golden Lion in human form. Sighing, the Golden Lion turned to leave, prepared to escape from the city amidst the chaos. In a corner not far away, a fiery red little fox was squatting there, swaying its big furry tail and clenching its pair of small claws, looking anxious. Her eyes, which were like black gemstones, blinked as she looked at the green-robed man in the crowd. Gradually, a layer of mist covered her eyes. A moment later, the little fox raised her head and sniffed. Wiping away the tears in her eyes, she looked at the demon-revealing mirror on the city wall that was emitting a terrifying beam of light, and a look of determination flashed through her eyes. Whoosh! A red light entered the darkness and the little fox disappeared. In the crowd, Tang Shiyun seemed to have lost her soul. She was pushed forward by countless cultivators. She had encountered too many unforeseen events in the past 2 days. Out of the hundreds of cultivators in the Southern Dual Sect, she was the only one left. As for the cultivator that she regarded as her benefactor and even had a favorable impression of, it turned out that he was a monster that was spurned by tens of thousands of people. Tang Shiyun stared blankly ahead. Among the tens of thousands of people, the green-robed man who was still struggling was like a trapped beast that had lost its claws and teeth. He was so pitiful and sorrowful. Tang Shiyun wanted to scream out loud. Even if he was a demon, he had saved her life before. But so what? She could not change the situation at all. The green-robed man would not be able to avoid death eventually. In fact, he might even be subjected to an unimaginable humiliation before his death. Every cultivator in the vicinity was so excited that they were shouting loudly. "Kill him! Drink his blood and eat his flesh!" The gazes of those cultivators were so frightening that they could not wait to skin Su Zimo alive. "It's all my fault. If I hadn't suggested it, he wouldn't have come here at all and naturally wouldn't have encountered Glass Palace." Tang Shiyun had a pained expression. Inadvertently, her gaze met with Su Zimo's in midair. Instantly, tears streamed down Tang Shiyun's face as she shook her head repeatedly. I'm sorry, however, compared to her voice and the cries around her, it was nothing and was drowned instantly. Right then, Tang Shiyun caught sight of a smile. Despite the situation, the green-robed man was actually smiling at her, as though he was consoling her. Tang Shiyun burst into tears. Su Zimo retracted his gaze. This was not Tang Shiyun's fault to begin with. Even without Tang Shiyun, he would have definitely come. That was because he had said that Glass Palace would pay with blood. Not far away, the crowd parted and a path appeared. Yi Tiancheng clutched the wound on his severed arm with his left hand and strode over with a cold expression. Arriving around 10 feet in front of Su Zimo, Yi Tiancheng's gaze was filled with hatred, mockery and condescension as he smiled sinisterly. Su Zimo pursed his lips. At this distance, under normal circumstances, he had 100 ways to kill Yi Tiancheng on the spot in less than a breath's time. However, he was suppressed by the power of the omnidirectional demon suppression formation right now and could not even raise his arm. Yi Tiancheng extended his palm and pressed down. Gradually, the crowd quietened down. Yi Tiancheng glared at Su Zimo and laughed. Be ****, your golden core is crippled and your inner core is sealed. Right now, you're nothing but a fish on the chopping block for me to slaughter. Since you severed my arm, I'll sever your limbs. Yi Tiancheng slapped his storage bag and a long saber appeared in his palm. Spirit energy was injected. The saber shuddered and shone with 5 spirit patterns. It was a perfect spirit weapon. Dragging the saber, Yi Tianqing looked at Su Zimo calmly and was not in a hurry. He was enjoying this feeling. Yi Tianqing circled around Su Zimo and sized him up. Swaying his hands on Su Zimo's body, he gestured with his hands and pretended to ponder. Where should I start? Fellow Taoist Yi, why don't you let out some blood and share it with everyone? That's right. This monster incarnate's blood must be delicious. Many cultivators in the crowd cheered. Alright, I'll listen to you guys. Yi Tianqing was in a great mood. Right then, Su Zimo turned his head and surveyed his surroundings. Due to the immense pressure, the sound of bones cracking could be heard from his neck. Su Zimo's gaze was sinister as he grinned, revealing a row of pearly white teeth. I'll give you guys one more chance. This is a feud between me and Glass Palace. Those who have nothing to do with it, get lost. Bloody hell, how dare a demon that's about to die be so arrogant? Chapter 653. Beast, how dare you make a ruckus? Kneel down first. Yi Tianqing hollered and interrupted the thoughts of the Glass Palace sealer. Instinctively, he turned towards the voice. In the center of the crowd, Yi Tianqing swung his saber and channeled his Jin Dan. Spirit energy surged and his saber shone brightly with spirit energy as it slashed towards Su Zimo's knees. There shouldn't be any changes, right? There's no way a spirit demon can break free from the omnidirectional demon suppression formation that was activated with the death of 4 sealers. That thought flashed through the mind of the Glass Palace sealer. Immediately after, his expression changed. He was Jining Zhenjuan after all and had cultivated an essence spirit. Although he was restricted and could not attack casually, the senses of his essence spirit were much sharper than that of other perfected Jin Dan. He could sense the fluctuation of spirit energy from Su Zimo's body. Furthermore, it was terrifying. Ancient. Dragonification. Manual. Su Zimo's eyes were frighteningly bright as he said word by word. A power that originated from the primordial times was being awakened as Su Zimo's aura rose continuously. Spirit energy. Jin Dan's aura. That person's Jin Dan is still around and hasn't been crippled. That's impossible. The crowd was in an uproar. During the Paragon Battle of the North region, many cultivators witnessed a void reversion destroying Su Zimo's Dantian with their own eyes. But now, Su Zimo's Jin Dan had been reconstructed and was even more frightening than before. Immediately after, in front of countless gazes, a living being that was several feet long appeared out of thin air and circled around his body a few times before rising and stopping in midair. Before Yi Tianqing's saber could reach Su Zimo's knees, it was knocked away by the living being and a series of sparks burst forth in the void. Yi Tianqing shuddered and his saber flew out of his hands, unable to grip it. Pust! What's that? Many cultivators widened their mouths dumbfounded. Streaks of green scales appeared on this creature's body one after another, flickering with cold light. The bone spurs on its back and its sharp claws were all revealed. Its head was towering. This is a dragon? A cultivator asked in a trembling voice, almost kneeling on the ground in fear. Although none of the self-cultivators in the ancient city had ever seen dragons, there was only one answer in their minds when they saw them with their own eyes. One of the 9 ancient races, the dragon. Only a true dragon could release such a terrifying aura. This true dragon was vivid and lifelike. Dragon scales, dragon bones, and dragon claws were all condensed. It had flesh and blood. The dragon's eyes slowly opened. That pair of eyes seemed to overlap with Su Zimo's eyes and could not be distinguished. That kind of gaze was cold, dignified, and unapproachable. Under the gaze of the dragon eye, some cultivators couldn't withstand the pressure and knelt on the ground. Their bodies trembled and they were as silent as cicadas in winter. Back in the primordial era, humans were enslaved by the 10,000 races and were as lowly as ants with lives as worthless as grass. At the same time, the primordial dragons were the leaders of the 10,000 races and ruled over the 4 directions, standing above all the other races. This was a bloodline suppression that originated from the depths of their ancient memories. Although Su Zimo could not move at all against the power of the 4-direction suppression formation, his aura was surging with the true dragon that coiled around him. A true dragon was already this frightening. What sort of an existence would someone who could control a true dragon be? A divine being. A divine being that controlled the world and ruled over all living beings. Even Glass Palace's sealer, who was standing in the air far away, felt his heart skip a beat. Let alone perfected Jin Dan, who was around him. Yi Tianqing, hurry and retreat. Glass Palace's sealer was the first to react and hollered. Yi Tianqing shuddered and snapped out of his stupor. Instinctively, he wanted to retreat and distance himself from Su Zimo. However, it was already too late. Su Zimo's gaze was like lightning as he took a deep breath of air and opened his mouth. Almost at the same time, the true dragon that coiled around him inhaled deeply as well. Its body expanded multiple times and it raised its head and puffed its chest. A massive air current surged and formed a series of hurricanes in midair. At the same time, the true dragon opened its bloody mouth and bared its menacing fangs while saliva dripped down. Roar! A sonorous roar burst out of the mouths of the man and the dragon at the same time. Su Zimo's black hair danced wildly and the veins on his neck popped. With a ferocious gaze, he roared to the front and a dragon's roar burst forth from his mouth. In that instant, the weather changed and sand and pebbles flew. That was a true dragon's roar. It was much stronger than thunderclap kill. Poof! 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 Most of the cultivators closest to Su Zimo could not withstand the reverberation of the dragon's roar and exploded instantly, turning into blood mists. Some of the cultivators further away had streaks of blood appear on their faces. Although their bodies did not explode, their organs were already pulverized. There were even more cultivators who stood on the spot motionlessly with widened eyes and blood oozed out of their 7 orifices. They were already dead. After the dragon's roar, there was complete silence. Some of the demon beast mounts of the cultivators, be it ancient remnant beasts or pure-blooded ferocious beasts, were shivering in fear and peeing their pants. There were countless people who were killed by that dragon's roar. Corpses were strewn all around Su Zimo and blood flowed like rivers. It was like purgatory. The omnidirectional demon suppression formation could seal his inner core and immobilize him on the spot. However, it could not seal his Jin Dan. Even if I can't move, killing all of you is as easy as slaughtering dogs. Su Zimo's voice was cold and torrential with killing intent. Within 30 feet of Su Zimo, Yi Tianqing was the only one who could still stand. His physique was indeed strong. Despite that dragon's roar, he did not die. However, his eardrums were already pierced and the wound on his right arm had ruptured as well. His mind was blank and his consciousness was blurry. He could no longer sense his surroundings. Hurry, retreat! Glass Palace's sealer shouted. Many perfected Jin Dan of Glass Palace crossed the sea of people and sprinted towards that person, wanting to save him. Gradually, Yi Tianqing regained some of his senses and his eyes were filled with fear as he wanted to retreat. The next moment he caught sight of Su Zimo's mocking smile. Go! Su Zimo opened his mouth and said indifferently. Swoosh! The true dragon that coiled around him soared and howled, descending above Yi Tianqing's head instantly. It lowered its head slightly and glared at him fixedly. Yi Tianqing was scared out of his wits. Drip! Saliva from the true dragon's mouth dripped onto Yi Tianqing's face, and he did not even dare to wipe it off. The next moment, the true dragon lowered its head and bit Yi Tianqing in its mouth. A stream of warm blood splattered out. Yi Tianqing was dead and devoured alive by the true dragon conjured by Su Zimo. Killing intent surged in Su Zimo's eyes. This was the first time he released the ancient dragonification manual, after staying dormant at the bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley for 20 years. He could clearly sense that the true dragon beside him was even more corporeal and sentient, as though it had a life of its own. In reality, this was extremely different from the description of the ancient dragonification manual. The ancient dragonification manual merely made use of a trace of dragon blood and spirit energy to conjure an illusory dragon. However, the dragon that Su Zimo summoned was lifelike with flesh and blood. What was even stranger was that he had a feeling that the true dragon seemed to have an extremely close connection with him, as though they came from the same bloodline and were indistinguishable. Chapter 654. Glass Palace's sealer had a terrible expression. Yi Tianqing was the most talented, youngest and strongest paragon of Jin Dan in Glass Palace after Shi Wuya. Yi Tianqing definitely had a chance of getting into the top 30 of the Jin Dan phenomenon ranking this time round. However, he truly did not expect that Yi Tianqing would be killed by a spirit art released by Su Zimo before he could even release his Jin Dan phenomenon. Glass Palace was most likely going to return empty-handed for this phenomenon ranking fight. Break this Azure Dragon for me. Glass Palace's sealer was enraged and pointed at the menacing Azure Dragon coiling in midair with a dark expression, hollering, "That dragon is condensed from spirit energy. What are you guys panicking for?" With the sealer's words, many cultivators calmed down swiftly. I refuse to believe that this monster incarnate can overturn the heavens. That's right, let's join forces. Kill him and take revenge for senior brother. Everyone was riled up. Many cultivators summoned their flying swords and sped over like a rain of arrows. Many spirit arts blanketed the skies and smashed down with a terrifying might. Kill! Su Zimo spat out coldly. The true dragon understood and soared into the air menacingly, emitting a torrential ferocity as it bared its fangs and claws, lunging towards the crowd. Bang! 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 Many flying swords and spirit arts were shattered when the true dragon crashed into them. Only the perfect spirit artifacts could survive this calamity. Even supreme-grade spirit weapons that were grazed by the true dragon cracked and dimmed. They were completely destroyed. Although the spirit arts in midair surged like a tsunami, they could not defend against the power of the true dragon. The true dragon collided into the crowd and caused a bloodbath once more. Without using its sharp claws and fangs, the massive body of the true dragon crushed even supreme-grade flying swords. The bodies of cultivators could not defend against it at all. The ancient Dragonification Manual was a spirit art created by the human emperor, and could even go against ordinary Jin Dan phenomenons. Furthermore, it was clear that the spirit art had transformed in Su Zimo's hands. It was even stronger and more frightening than before. Even if many cultivators joined forces, they could not defend against the true dragon's attacks. Finally, a cultivator was forced to conjure his Jin Dan phenomenon. An energy fluctuation that was even more terrifying than spirit arts appeared. Heaven-piercing stone pillar. A thick stone pillar appeared behind the cultivator. It was simple and ancient and pierced through heaven and earth with a majestic aura, suppressing the true dragon's body. Without even looking at it, the true dragon swung its gigantic tail swing. True tail. Boom! The heaven-piercing stone pillar was shattered by the dragon's tail. The cultivator's expression changed drastically as he spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes dimmed as he fell from the sky. Another golden core had just conjured a phenomenon when it was torn apart by the sharp claws of the true dragon, shredding his body into pieces. However, after the impact of the two golden core phenomenons, the glow on the true dragon's body dimmed slightly. Fellow Taoists, if we work together, this evil dragon won't be able to hold on for long. Someone shouted. Many cultivators were startled. Bang! Bang! Thousands of Jin Dan perfected beings attacked at the same time and conjured their Jin Dan phenomenons, forming a destructive power that struck the true dragon. Crack! 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 The true dragon paused in midair and cracks appeared on its massive body, becoming clearer by the moment. Among the thousands of Jin Dan phenomenons, there were many Glass Palace cultivators who released ancient phenomenons of their sex legacy, such as Glass Divine Light. The power of the Jin Dan phenomenons converged like rivers, forming a massive tsunami that could annihilate all living beings and shatter the true dragon instantly. Ha 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 ha. So what if he's a true dragon? So what if he's the strongest monster incarnate in history? How can you fight against all the heroes of the world single-handedly? Kill him. Many cultivators were excited as they conjured their Jin Dan phenomenons and charged towards Su Zimo while shouting. As long as they killed Su Zimo personally, their names would definitely spread throughout the world. Do you guys think that you're worthy of being called heroes? Su Zimo's expression turned colder as he burst into laughter. Despite the circumstances, there was no hint of panic in his eyes. Instead, they shone brighter and more ferociously. The endless power of phenomenon surged over. It was a suffocating pressure. Against that pressure, the Jin Dan within Su Zimo's dantian churned wildly, and a terrifying phenomenon rose behind him. Boom! The firmaments shattered. Countless torrents and meteors poured down in torrents. It was a scene of destruction. Bang! 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 An incomparably massive ancient demon descended with a terrifying aura. Its 4 legs were like heavenly pillars as it stood motionlessly in the dark depths of the sea, suppressing the raging tides. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. The tough shell of the demon supported the shattered firmaments and covered the entire world, blocking the torrents and protecting all living beings. That phenomenon, Divine Turtle. It's the lost primordial Divine Turtle. A series of exclamations sounded from the crowd. The Divine Turtle descended and roared into the skies. Instantly, torrential waves surged. The Divine Turtle was even larger than the ancient city and protected Su Zimo beneath it, blocking all the incoming Jin Dan phenomenons. Bang! 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 Against the impact of thousands of Jin Dan phenomenons, the primordial Divine Turtle stood firm. Many cultivators were shocked. Thousands of Jin Dan phenomenons could not break through the defense of the primordial Divine Turtle. The primordial Divine Turtle lives up to its reputation. Glass Palace's sealer murmured softly. Legend has it that when the primordial Divine Turtle released its true strength, it could even be ranked in the top 10 of the phenomenon ranking. That was a divine being that saved all living beings in the primordial era. Suddenly, Glass Palace's sealer's expression changed, as though he recalled something. Not good. Legend has it that this lad has not only cultivated the primordial Divine Turtle, he has also cultivated another phenomenon. Glass Palace's sealer roared, "Watch out!" Rumble. Boom. Before his voice could reach them, it was drowned by a series of explosions. Another phenomenon appeared behind Su Zimo. What's that? It's a double phenomenon. The ground collapsed continuously, creating a series of bottomless ravines. A malevolent aura surged out. Mountains collapsed and the ground cracked. Scarlet lava spewed out with a scorching temperature and wreaked havoc on the vast land, burning everything within a radius of 90,000 kilometers and turning countless living beings into ashes. In midair, some cultivators could not withstand it any longer and their Jin Dan phenomenons behind them collapsed. Without the protection of the Jin Dan phenomenons, those cultivators were exposed to the torrential waves and were devoured instantly, vanishing without a trace. Ah! 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 Some of the cultivators were stained by the crimson lava. Their bodies instantly turned into balls of fire as they uttered cries of agony. Although most of the cultivators were still channeling their Jin Dan in a frenzy to form Jin Dan phenomenons, the restlessness in the crowd was getting more obvious. However, Su Zimo's counterattack had only just begun. From the crack in the ground, a gigantic living being crawled out with a terrifying aura. It had the head of a snake and the body of an anaconda. Its entire body was scarlet and filled with scales that stacked together like red-hot metal plates. Snake head, anaconda body, dragon scales, phoenix wings, no horns on its head and no legs beneath its abdomen. It was the primordial soaring serpent. The phenomenon had reappeared and a divine being had descended. A cruel look flashed through the eyes of Glass Palace's sealer as he said sinisterly, "Little beast, I'll wait here for you to be suppressed to death." Su Zimo snickered with a ferocious gaze and said coldly, "Old dog, I can take your life even before I die. Alright, let's see who can last until the end." Glass Palace's sealer nodded and sneered. Roar! Suddenly, a deafening tiger roar sounded from outside the ancient city, causing one's heart to fluster. Instantly, a strong gust of wind howled and sand flew. When he heard that roar, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat and his eyes widened in disbelief. Ling Hu? In the ears of ordinary cultivators, there was not much difference between a tiger's roar and a tiger's roar. However, Su Zimo was a demonic cultivator himself and had interacted with Ling Hu day and night. He could naturally tell the difference. He had once imparted the Void Thunder manual to Ling Hu. That was the reason why Ling Hu's roar carried the masculinity of thunder, and was loud and clear. Of course, the most obvious difference was the coquettish tone at the end of his roar. Suzimo did not know how he developed that habit. Back on Misty Peak, Suzimo wanted to send Linghu flying with a kick each time he heard such a despicable cry. Elder Xiao, a beast stampede is approaching. A glass palace cultivator shouted. Boom! 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 The ground quaked wildly. Even though he was in the ancient city, Suzimo could sense it clearly. Suzimo was agitated and could not help but roar into the skies. Chapter 656. Suzimo's roar reverberated through the world, piercing through metal and rocks. Roar! The tiger's roar sounded once more with a hint of excitement. The two roars echoed in midair. Gaga gaga! A series of unrestrained laughter sounded from outside the ancient city. It was ear-piercing and sounded like metal clashing. When he heard that strange laughter, Suzimo could not help but laugh as a tall figure with long limbs covered in his own feces appeared in his mind. Monkey! Linghu! They were still alive. They were here. Suzimo was delighted. Ever since the incident at Dongling Valley where Suzimo was hunted down by Blood Crow Palace, Monkey and Linghu had left Misty Peak. Ever since then there had been no news of them. Suzimo had thought of searching for them as well. However, the world was huge and there were no clues. It was harder than searching for a needle in a haystack if he wanted to find two demon beasts. To think that the three of them would reunite once more in the intermediate ancient battlefield. East. Dust billowed. It was unknown how many demonic beasts were charging towards this place. The sound of their hooves was like thunder, and the momentum was terrifying. The ground shook violently and irregularly. Most of the demon beasts sprinted on the ground, causing dust to billow. With their feet on the ground they could make use of more strength to dodge. There were also some ferocious birds that tore through the air and cried loudly. Defend the city with all your might. Don't bother about Suzimo for now. He won't be able to escape. Glass Palace's sealer, Elder Xiao, had a calm expression as he gave orders swiftly. Led by Glass Palace cultivators, many cultivators in the ancient city swarmed towards the eastern city wall. At that moment, nobody could retreat nor did they dare to. It was late at night right now and if the ancient city was breached by the beast stampede, none of them would be able to escape death. Spirit light filled the skies. Countless flying swords shot down from the city wall. Spirit arts rained down in a torrential manner. Suzimo was trapped in the center of the ancient city and could not see the situation outside. However, the blood chi outside the ancient city had already dyed half the skies red. It could be seen how tragic this battle was. The cries and roars of the beasts could be heard continuously. The city wall was almost packed with cultivators. The cultivators in the ancient city only had to make use of their geographical advantage and the impenetrable defense of the ancient city to release their flying swords, spirit weapons and arts to deal the greatest damage to the beast stampede. On the ground, if a demonic beast was severely injured, it would be instantly drowned by the beast tide behind it. More and more demonic beasts fell. However, the beast tide showed no signs of retreating. At the front of the beast horde, there were two beasts emitting terrifying auras. They were charging toward the ancient city with murderous intent. More than 20 years passed. Linghu became even stronger and a malevolent aura emanated from his body. The tiger claws that he extended actually flickered with lightning in a terrifying manner. Spirit techniques and flying swords descended, but most of them were sent flying by Linghu's brute strength. After cultivating the void lightning incantation, he had also undergone a complete transformation. Its claws and fangs were so sharp that they could even block a perfect spirit artifact. However, there were way too many flying swords and spirit arts in midair that rained down like a torrential downpour. Linghu's body was inevitably covered with a few wounds as well. Thankfully, those wounds were not fatal. Instead, those wounds triggered Linghu's ferocity, and his speed increased explosively as he howled. On the other side, Monkey tiptoed and made use of the agility of his movement technique to dodge the rain of swords. Although Monkey did not make a sound, the blood-red glint in its eyes intensified. It was also because Ling Hu and Monkey were at the front that the beast stampede behind them did not disperse and was pushing towards the ancient city rapidly. It was a bloody path that was created using corpses and bones. Elder Xiao stood in midair and looked at the dense beast stampede in the distance with a cold expression. A bunch of reckless beasts. Kill them all. This time round, Glass Palace sent more than 2,000 perfected Jin Dan. Although they lost hundreds of people in the battle just now, there were still more than 1,000 Glass Palace cultivators left. Coupled with the other cultivators in the city, there were close to 10,000 of them. With the advantage of the terrain, there was no way the beast stampede could break through the defenses of the ancient city. If things went south, the beast stampede would definitely retreat. As time passed by, the roars outside the ancient city did not fade away. Instead, they were getting closer. In fact, they were already closing in on the ancient city. Elder Xiao's expression changed slightly as he looked at the battlefield in the east. Corpses were strewn all over the ground beneath the ancient city and blood flowed like rivers. Although the beast stampede had pushed to the bottom of the ancient city, that short 1,000 feet of distance was filled with demon beast corpses and flesh. It was like hell with a nauseating stench that filled the air. The beast stampede had lost at least half of its numbers. Something's not right. Elder Xiao frowned and murmured, "Is the leader of the Demon Kings crazy? They're still going to attack the city despite such heavy losses?" Under normal circumstances, the leader of the Demon Kings would have been able to discern the situation and give the order to retreat before the beast stampede lost more than half of its strength. But now, the two Demon Kings in the lead seemed to have lost their minds as they led the remaining beast stampede to attack the ancient city repeatedly. Corpses had already piled up into mountains beneath the ancient city. Be it the cultivators or the remaining demon beasts, all of them were in a killing frenzy. Stepping on the corpses of their companions, they charged towards the top of the city walls with all their might. The cultivators on the city walls resisted with all their might as well. If the demon beasts managed to reach the top of the city walls, countless cultivators would die. That was because apart from Glass Palace cultivators, not many people could fight demon beasts in melee combat. The two demon kings were already covered in injuries. However, they continued to charge at the top of the city walls fearlessly with bloodshot eyes, wanting to climb up. If they were suppressed, they would charge once more. Even Elder Xiao, who was watching from afar, felt his heart skip a beat when faced with such terrifying willpower, let alone the cultivators on the city walls. What's supporting these demon beasts? Elder Xiao could not understand. It was as though there was some treasure in the ancient city that these demon beasts were bent on obtaining. Hold on. A thought flashed through Elder Xiao's mind and it became clearer. He spun around suddenly and looked at the green-robed cultivator in the center of the city. At that moment, the green-robed cultivator's expression was frighteningly dark. In fact, his features were somewhat menacing and green veins popped up on his neck. The killing intent in his eyes was almost corporeal and was about to burst. It's him. These demon beasts are trying to save him. Elder Xiao was enlightened. At the same time, he felt a chill run down his spine. His scalp prickled and his hair stood on end. Initially, there was no way Su Zimo could break free from the omnidirectional demon suppression formation. This was a dead end. But now an uncontrollable variable had appeared in that dead end. Finally, a hint of panic flashed through Elder Xiao's eyes. There can't be any mistakes with the omnidirectional demon suppression formation. Once the formation is destroyed and Su Zimo breaks free, who can stop him? By then, when the beast stampede breaks through the city, everyone in the ancient city will probably. Chapter 657. Elder Xiao reacted extremely quickly and turned around, hollering at the cultivators on the city walls, "Protect the demon revealing mirror with all your might. Don't let those beasts touch it." The Glass Palace cultivators obeyed and ran towards the demon revealing mirror hurriedly. This kind of mobilization caused a trace of chaos in the crowd. It was inevitable that a flaw would appear on the defensive line of the city walls. Boom! A gigantic, coarse palm covered in black hair suddenly reached out from below and slammed heavily against the city walls. A shockwave rumbled. At least 3 or 4 cultivators could not dodge in time and were squashed into meat paste by the gigantic palm. Blood gushed out and splattered everywhere on the city walls. Pushing with the gigantic palm, a tall, pitch-black figure leaped onto the city walls. A monkey covered in long hair bared its teeth at the cultivators and glared with bloodshot eyes. Waving its arms, it thumped its chest wildly. It was as though a divine being was beating the heavenly drums with a shocking aura. When they heard that sound, the demon beasts below the city walls were even more excited and followed behind Monkey, charging towards the city walls endlessly. Roar! There was a deafening tiger roar. The pressure on Linghu was greatly reduced after Monkey broke through the defensive line of the city walls. He charged up the city walls and charged into the crowd, waving his sharp claws and baring his menacing fangs. The crowd was in chaos. Most of the cultivators who could enter the ancient battlefield were elites of their respective major sects and factions with some capabilities. It was the same for the demon beasts who could enter this place. At such a close distance, most cultivators were not a match for the demon beasts. Monkey barged into the crowd. Even though he was barehanded, no one could stop him. Everywhere he passed, people and horses were thrown off their feet. Be it Monkey or Linghu, both of them were already covered in injuries. However, they charged forward in a frenzy, as though they could not feel the pain on their bodies. In the center of the ancient city, Su Zimo was silent as he watched everything. His gaze was cold and his trembling body was the only indication of his emotions. Over there. I see it. Linghu killed a path of blood and caught sight of Su Zimo in the center of the city from afar. Linghu wagged his tail and wanted to charge down to save Su Zimo immediately. Elder Xiao smirked. He was not worried about the demon beasts charging over at all. As long as the demon beasts entered the range of the omnidirectional demon suppression formation, all of them would die. Don't go. Monkey growled deeply. Linghu paused in his tracks with a confused expression. Turning around, Monkey glared at the demon revealing mirror that was protected in the crowd not far away. Before this, he had heard someone shouting in the city to protect the demon revealing mirror. Furthermore, Monkey could clearly see that it was because of the beams emitted by the demon revealing mirrors on the city walls that Su Zimo was fixed in the center of the city motionlessly. The key was the 4 demon revealing mirrors. Boss, it's too difficult. The spirit tiger could tell what Monkey was up to as well as it grinned and grumbled. More than 1,000 cultivators of Glass Palace had already abandoned the defensive line of the city walls and gathered around the demon revealing mirror. The demon mirror sect, demon limitless beasts, as every single Glass Palace cultivator had a strong physique and immense strength. They could fight against demon beasts barehanded. If the defensive line on the city walls was too long, their strength would definitely be dispersed and there would inevitably be weak spots. However, it was much simpler to protect a single demon revealing mirror. It was impossible to get past the Glass Palace cultivators. Kill! Monkey pointed forward and roared. Without any hesitation, the blood chi in his body surged and he charged towards the demon revealing mirror in huge strides. Even if the entire Glass Palace was before him, Monkey was going to crush it. Kill! 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 Many Glass Palace cultivators roared and attacked at the same time. Flying swords tore through the air. Monkey ignored them and did not slow down at all. Twisting his body, he avoided his vitals and reached out with his massive, rough palm to slap them fiercely. Poof! 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 Instantly, a few more wounds appeared on Monkey's body. One of the wounds was so deep that even his bones were exposed. Monkey merely frowned and the ferocity in his eyes intensified. Exerting strength in his palm, he sent a few Glass Palace cultivators flying. Crack! 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 The sounds of bones cracking could be heard from the Glass Palace cultivators' bodies while they were still in midair. Even the bodies of Glass Palace cultivators could not withstand a full-powered attack from Monkey. It was way too ferocious. Monkey charged the entire way with no regard for himself. He was fighting with his life on the line. Even if he was injured, he had to kill the Glass Palace cultivators. Although these Glass Palace cultivators were elites of the sect and had experienced countless life and death battles, they had never seen such cruel methods before. Monkey's eyes were already dyed red with blood, a pair of bloodshot eyes beneath the night sky. They were even brighter than the stars in the firmaments. Nobody dared to meet those bloodshot eyes. The bloodshot eyes had appeared. A power hidden in the depths of Monkey's bloodline had been awakened. Berserk. That was a power unique to the sanguine ape race. Roar. Monkey reared his head and roared into the skies, entering a berserk state. There was no rationality or thought. There was only a single thought in his mind: kill. The truly frightening thing was that in that berserk state, Monkey's strength and speed increased exponentially. He could not feel any pain at all. Unless he was severely injured, the massacre would not stop. In fact, he could not even remember Linghu. Everything that stood in his way: kill. 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 Monkey swung his thick arms and swept through the crowd. Like a heavenly pillar, he crushed everything in his path and sent all the cultivators in his way flying with broken tendons and broken bones. That gigantic fist was like a gigantic pitch-black seal. Each time it smashed down, the city walls would tremble. Linghu followed closely behind and killed with all his might. The thunderbolts beneath his claws were gradually weakening and dimming. In fact, his claws were already sliced countless times by spirit weapons and were no longer sharp. They could break at any moment. However, he was still fighting. Without his claws, he would use his teeth to bite. If his teeth were shattered, he would use his head and body to smash them. He's gone mad. Those two beasts have gone mad. Many cultivators were already scared out of their wits. Most of the cultivators in the ancient city had fought against demon beasts before. However, none of them, including Elder Xiao who had lived for close to 1,000 years, had seen demon beasts that would fight to such an extent that they had completely forgotten about their own lives. In the ancient city to the south, a burly man with yellow hair wanted to escape from the city amidst the chaos. However, when he saw that, he felt a sense of shock from the bottom of his heart and gripped his fists instinctively. It was a feeling of his blood boiling. In fact, he even wanted to rush over and help that monkey, that Linghu. However, he calmed down before long and reminded himself repeatedly. He must not be rash. He must not be rash. On the other side, a fiery red fox hid in a corner and watched everything nervously. From time to time, her gaze would land on the demon-revealing mirror that was guarded by dozens of glass palace cultivators not far away. The little fox was waiting for an opportunity to strike. That was the demon-revealing mirror on the southern city wall. Although there were only dozens of glass palace cultivators guarding it, it was extremely difficult for the little fox to get close and break through their defenses to touch the demon-revealing mirror. She had never fought against anyone before. At that moment her heart was filled with fear. However, she knew that she had to stand out. Chapter 658. The massacre continued on the eastern city wall. Monkey's bloodshot eyes were like two sinister red lanterns in the dark night. Wherever those two lanterns floated, there would be a bloodbath. Snap! The sound of bones cracking could be heard. A perfected Jean Dan of Glass Palace made use of the chaos to close in and punched Monkey's knee heavily. The knee was a bloody mess and the bones shattered on the spot. Monkey was in a berserk state. Although he could not feel any pain, his left knee was severely injured and he lost his footing and almost fell. However, that delay caused his movement technique to pause and a few flying swords tore through the air, piercing Monkey's massive body instantly. Poof! 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 Blood splattered everywhere. Instantly, a few bloody holes appeared on Monkey's body. One of them pierced his chest right beside his heart. If it had been slightly off, he would have died on the spot. The monkey was covered in wounds and blood as it panted heavily. With every single breath, blood would spurt out from his nose and mouth in a frightening manner. Gradually, Monkey's footsteps came to a stop. He was truly tired. If he had not triggered the berserk power in the depths of his bloodline, he would have collapsed a long time ago. The blood glint in Monkey's eyes gradually dissipated. The berserk power was disappearing from his body. In its place was an increasingly distinct pain that pierced his heart and bones. Apart from the weakness of his body due to the massive blood loss, Monkey also felt a wave of dizziness. His consciousness was chaotic and even his vision was blurry. Monkey shook his head. Streaks of blood flowed out from his nose and mouth. The demon-revealing mirror was not far ahead. There were only 2 rows of glass palace cultivators between them. Monkey was already exhausted. However, he was indignant. Monkey widened his eyes. Although the blood glint in his eyes had dimmed, his ferocity did not diminish. With a prideful expression, he bared his teeth and glared at the demon-revealing mirror not far ahead. The cultivators on the other side did not dare to advance recklessly against Monkey's glare. 2 glass palace cultivators stood out and composed themselves. With a holler, they summoned their flying swords once more and stabbed towards Monkey's head. Both flying swords shone with 5 spirit lights. 2 perfect spirit artifacts. The cultivators who could survive until now were all the strongest elites of their respective sects and forces. Naturally, the weapons they possess were also extraordinary. Monkey looked at the 2 flying swords and wanted to dodge. However, he felt that his body was extremely heavy and refused to listen to his commands. If the 2 flying swords were to pierce through, even if the monkey had 10 lives, it wouldn't be enough to survive. Suddenly, a black shadow rushed over from the side and knocked away one of the flying swords. The other flying sword pierced through the figure. The black shadow fell to the ground powerlessly. His abdomen had been pierced, revealing a hideous bloody hole. Blood was gushing out. It was Ling Hu. At the last moment, Ling Hu rushed forward to save Monkey. Ling Hu was already exhausted, and with the flying sword pierced through his abdomen, he could no longer get up. He could only lie on the ground, his eyes dim as he whimpered. Su Zimo's eyes were cold. He clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles were slightly pale. Before he knew it, his sharp nails had pierced through the flesh of his palm, but he was completely unaware of it. Roar! When Monkey saw this scene, he was first taken aback. Following that, his huge body began to convulse as he let out a loud roar. Ta! 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 Dragging his battered body, Monkey used the last of his strength to take 3 consecutive steps and charge towards the 2 rows of glass palace cultivators. Glass divine light. A glass palace perfected Jindan harumphed and charged towards Monkey, releasing the legacy phenomenon of glass palace. Splash! The power of the phenomenon surged and glass divine light shone brightly. A series of rainbow lights burst forth from the back of the glass palace cultivator. Some of the demon beasts at the side were engulfed by the rainbow lights. Instantly, the flesh of the demon beasts froze like ice without any signs of life. A casual touch would turn them into ice cubes that scattered all over the ground. Monkey had a menacing expression and had no intention of stopping in his tracks. Against the glass divine light, he charged forward and reached out with his massive palm, grabbing the glass palace cultivator. "You must have a death wish." The man sneered and spat out 2 words from between his teeth. Given the power of glass divine light, Monkey's arm could not even touch him. Even the bloodline of a pure-blooded ferocious beast would be turned into ice powder by the glass divine light. Crack! Crack! True enough. Monkey's arm was covered by a layer of rainbow crystals when it entered the glass divine light. His fur fell off one after another, revealing the flesh beneath. In the blink of an eye, the flesh on his arm was covered by a layer of rainbow crystals as well. By the time the power of the phenomenon seeped into the flesh and bones of his arm, Monkey's arm would be completely crippled. However, before Monkey's arm was completely penetrated by the power of glass divine light, it had already gripped the throat of the glass palace cultivator. How is that possible? The glass palace cultivator's eyes widened in disbelief. There was only a single explanation for that. Monkey's bloodline was even stronger and more terrifying than pure-blooded ferocious beasts. It was able to withstand the corrosion of glass divine light for the time being. At that moment, Monkey could have killed the glass palace cultivator with just a little bit of strength. However, Monkey did not do that. Gripping the person's throat, he aimed at the demon-revealing mirror not far away and tossed the person over viciously. The glass palace cultivator was dizzy from the toss and could not control his body at all. He could only instinctively maintain his Jindan phenomenon and crash into the crowd. A few cultivators could not dodge in time and were turned into powder by the glass divine light on the spot without any corpses left. None of the remaining cultivators could release their Jindan phenomenons and could not defend against that person. Boom! That person slammed heavily against the demon-revealing mirror. There was a loud clang. The demon-revealing mirror rolled and fell from the city walls. Initially, there were 4 beams of light on the 4 walls. Now that one of the demon-revealing mirrors was knocked over, there was 1 less beam of light. The pressure on Su Zimo's body lessened slightly. However, the omnidirectional demon suppression formation was not completely dispelled. He had to move at least 3 demon-revealing mirrors before he could break free completely. On the city walls, Monkey finally heaved a sigh of relief when he saw the demon-revealing mirror fall. His gaze dimmed and he could no longer hold on. With a loud bang, Monkey's massive body collapsed weakly on the city walls, causing dust and blood to splatter everywhere. Monkey tilted his head and looked at Su Zimo in the center of the city, trying his best to move his cracked lips and chuckle, just like how he did back in Songlang Mountain Range. Su Zimo's eyes were misted over. In midair, Elder Xiu's heart finally settled down as well. The fall of a single demon-revealing mirror did not have much of an impact on the situation. Furthermore, the 2 demon kings were already exhausted and could be killed at any moment. There was nothing to fear about the remaining demon beasts. Everyone, heed my command. Abandon the east wall and defend the other 3 walls with all your might. Guard the other 3 demon-revealing mirrors. Before Elder Xiu finished his sentence, something happened on the south wall. Chapter 659. The most intense battlefield of this battle was in the east. There were only dozens of glass palace cultivators guarding the demon-revealing mirror on the southern city wall. At that moment, the attention of the dozens of cultivators was drawn to the east. Suddenly, a red light burst forth from a corner of the southern city wall, and charged towards the demon-revealing mirror not far away. The streak of red light was extremely tiny. Like a wisp of smoke, it passed by the feet of many glass palace cultivators at an extremely fast speed. What's that? The dozens of glass palace cultivators were only stunned for a moment before they reacted and hollered. The red light was none other than the little fox. Su Zimo was both surprised and delighted when he saw that the little fox was fine. However, when he realized what the little fox was about to do, Su Zimo tensed up once more. The fall of the demon-revealing mirror on the eastern city wall was also the moment when the cultivators here were the most relaxed. The little fox mustered her courage and grit her teeth, sprinting towards the demon-revealing mirror. However, she had only passed through a few figures when everyone reacted. The little fox was sprinting with all her might when she suddenly felt her tail being gripped by someone, and her entire body was suspended in the air. The person behind her tugged forcefully. Ah! The little fox let out a delicate cry as she was easily lifted up by her tail. She was in too much of a hurry and her tail was gripped by someone, causing her to feel a tearing pain in her lower body. Coupled with the deep fear in her heart, the little fox's body began to tremble uncontrollably. Fufu, it's a fox. That fox can't be killed. I heard that foxes are all ethereal beauties after they take on human form. They're naturally seductive and are the best at serving their masters. Tisk tsk. Not bad. A group of glass palace cultivators surrounded the little fox and laughed lewdly. The little fox had an embarrassed expression as she gripped her tiny paws tightly and swayed her tail gently. Suddenly, a fragrance spread from her lower body. The first to bear the brunt of it was the cultivator who was gripping the little fox's tail. The glass palace cultivator had a dazed expression and opened his mouth wide. No one knew what he was thinking as he drooled. He loosened his grip and the little fox broke free. When the surrounding cultivators caught a whiff of the fragrance, they seemed to have lost their souls as well as they froze on the spot with infatuated gazes. This kind of bewitching fragrance was a unique technique of the Fox clan. For kind-hearted and magnanimous people, not only would the fragrance not harm them, it would even help them cultivate and nourish their character. For those with a vicious nature and evil heart, this delicate fragrance would cause them to lose their sense of self and be dominated by the Fox clan. The little fox slipped past dozens of cultivators and sprinted towards the demon-revealing mirror at full speed. He had to be quick. Given the strength of the glass palace cultivators, it wouldn't be long before they woke up. At that time when these people reacted, she would have no chance at all. The demon-revealing mirror was right in front of him. Suddenly, a pair of cloud-treading boots appeared before Little Fox's eyes. A shadow loomed over them. Before she could react, she felt her breathing become sluggish. Her throat was strangled by a rough hand. A glass palace cultivator had a cold expression and smirked. His eyes shone with mockery as he grabbed the little fox by the throat and lifted her up. This person was the leader of these dozens of cultivators. His name was Zhang Hui, and his cultivation was the strongest. He stood in front of the demon-revealing mirror and did not get close to it. Naturally, he was not affected. Zhang Hui glared at Little Fox and sneered, "Little thing, do you think you're capable of causing trouble?" Little Fox struggled with her frail body. However, Zhang Hui's hand was like an iron clamp and she could not break free no matter what. All of a sudden, Little Fox's body shuddered, and right in front of Zhang Hui, she transformed into a young girl in her prime. The young girl was wrapped in a red chiffon dress that outlined her curvaceous figure. Her slender thighs were half revealed in a secretive manner. Zhang Hui shuddered and a nefarious fire surged in his abdomen. He looked at the young girl's face again. She was truly worthy of the word peerless. In this world, it would not be an exaggeration to describe the young girl's face with the most beautiful words. Those beautiful eyes were soul-stirring and seemed as though they could drip water. The young girl's expression was both annoyed and angry. Her eyes were misty and her nose was straight. Her cherry lips were slightly parted, revealing half of her teeth, and she emitted a faint fragrance with every breath she took. Zhang Hui's mind buzzed and his eyes widened. He released his grip instinctively as well. When the cultivators who rushed over to provide reinforcements caught sight of the young girl's face, they stopped in their tracks instinctively. There was a series of clanging sounds. The weapons in the hands of the cultivators fell one after another. That was all there was to a devastating beauty. Little Fox broke free from Zhang Hui's grip and ran towards the demon-revealing mirror not far away. She had only taken a few steps when a deep roar sounded from behind. Zhang Hui pounced on Little Fox like a wild beast. His eyes were bloodshot as he panted heavily and gripped Little Fox's throat viciously, hollering, "Demoness, you demoness! Don't even think about bewitching me!" Little Fox could not breathe at all and her legs kicked wildly. However, her arms were desperately reaching for the demon-revealing mirror that was inches away. "Even if I have to use my last bit of strength, I have to topple the demon-revealing mirror." That was the only thought in Little Fox's mind. When he saw that, Su Zimo grit his teeth and channeled his blood chi to its limits. His eyes were bloodshot as he let out a shuddering roar from the depths of his throat. Not far away, a burly yellow-haired man was half a step out of the city wall and wanted to take advantage of the chaos to escape. However, when he saw that, he could not help but pause in his tracks. For some reason, he felt his blood boiling. "Bloody hell, I don't care anymore. I'm going all out." The burly yellow-haired man retracted his feet and roared, charging towards Zhang Hui at the side. While his body was still in midair, it transformed into a majestic golden lion. It stretched out its sharp claws, opened its bloody mouth and bared its fangs. Zhang Hui's mind was in a complete mess. In reality, he was already bewitched by Little Fox. However, the secret skills he cultivated, such as the Glass Mental Sutra, reminded him repeatedly that something was amiss. The conflict between the two thoughts in his mind resulted in this situation. Even when the golden lion lunged over, he did not notice it. Exclamation point! The golden lion bit off Zhang Hui's head and crushed it before devouring it. At the same time, the dozens of glass palace cultivators at the side snapped out of their stupor and charged over. "I'll hold them back. Hurry and leave." The golden lion did not have time to look at Little Fox and merely left that sentence before charging towards the dozens of glass palace cultivators. Little Fox struggled to stand up. Before she could catch her breath, she ran in front of the demon-revealing mirror and gripped the edge of it with both hands, flipping it forcefully. Clang! The demon-revealing mirror was overturned on the spot. Another beam of light disappeared from Su Zimo's body. Instantly, it was as though the entire world went silent. The air froze. The ancient city was filled with killing intent. An extremely terrifying aura was slowly being released from the center of the ancient city. It was as though an extremely frightening existence was awakening. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.